when Jingshu suspected she must have offended some deity in her past life. Otherwise, why would fate play such a cruel joke on her? It all started from the very beginning. She was a postgraduate majoring in English at a legitimate project, 211 University. She had earned an excellent grade on the TM-8 test, held a level 2 CATI certificate for written translation, and spoke fluent interpreting. 10 years ago, a resume like hers would have impressed countless HR managers the moment it hit the desk. Unfortunately, she graduated in 2024. English, once a highly sought-after major, had turned into a difficult field to break into. AI translation grew increasingly powerful, foreign trade industries struggled to stay afloat, and the after-school tutoring sector had been drastically scaled back. For 3 months, she sent out resumes and interviewed with 8 companies. She only received 2 job offers. The first was a copywriting position at an overseas education agency, paying 4,500 yuan per month with no housing or meal subsidies. The second was an English editor role at a teaching aid publishing house, offering 3,000 yuan monthly, single-day weekends, and a 6-month probation period. Lin Xiaohe, her college classmate and best friend, bombarded her WeChat every single day. Lin Xiaohe was among the first in their class to land a stable government job. She had passed the civil service examination and joined the local tax bureau back in her hometown. On her Moments feed, she constantly posted photos of sweet and sour spare ribs and braised fish from the staff canteen, captioned, "Today's canteen treat. Jingshu, take the civil service exam. It's really great. I work 9 to 5, enjoy full social, insurance benefits, and the canteen food is super cheap. What are you waiting for? What are you hesitating about? What are you holding back for?" One voice message after another poured in, rapid as gunfire. Every time when Jingshu saw them, she simply gave a like and replied, "I'm still looking around." Deep down, the idea had crossed her mind. Yet she was quiet by nature and disliked fierce competition. Just imagining hundreds of candidates vying for one post made her feel short of breath. The image of thousands of soldiers crossing a single log bridge sent chills down her spine. Still, she had no better alternatives. "Fine. I'll sign up for it." She sent Lin Xiaohe a voice note, her tone flat and unreadable, though her heart ached. She hated the administrative aptitude test. She detested data analysis sections, those absurd questions about wheat yields and mixed growth rates. Even so, she registered for the provincial civil service exam. More than 400 people competed for that single opening. As an English major graduate, she found herself pitted against candidates with degrees in law, public administration, and public service management. She knew her odds were slim. It felt much like buying a lottery ticket, a symbolic attempt more than anything else. The exam fell on a cold, gloomy Saturday in December. Seated in the examination hall, when Jingshu's fingers grew stiff from the chill. By question 110 of the aptitude test, her mind had turned foggy. The data analysis questions, covering grain output, year-on-year growth rates, and average value growth rates, made numbers dance wildly before her eyes like unruly grasshoppers. She stared at one question for a full 2 minutes, thinking only one thought. As a master's graduate in English, why on earth am I calculating wheat yields? What does this have to do with my major? Absolutely nothing at all. She rubbed her temples and decided to guess option C. Her eyelids grew heavier and heavier, as if weighted down with sandbags. The proctor's voice drifted to her from far away. "Attention, candidates. 15 minutes remained before the end of the examination." When Jingshu tried to open her eyes, but her lids would not obey. Her consciousness was wrenched violently, and she plummeted, as though cast from one world into another. The last sound she heard was her pen clattering to the floor with a clink. Then everything fell silent. "Jingshu? Jingshu! Wake up, it's time for dinner." A voice, both unfamiliar and oddly familiar, boomed beside her ears and pulled Jingshu out of endless darkness. She jolted awake. Warm sunlight spilled over a square wooden table. On the table sat an enamel mug, beside which stacked thick textbooks, trade economics, business economics, and an introduction to China's foreign trade. Dazed, when Jingshu slowly turned her gaze to take in the room. It was modest, but neatly kept. Against one wall stood an old-style wooden wardrobe. Next to it was a small dressing table topped with a round hand mirror. Laid tidily upon its surface were a wooden comb, a tin of clam, skin balm, and a small bottle of vanishing cream. This must be a government, staff residential compound, with 2-story brick buildings for each household. When Jingshu sat up, beneath her was a blue, checkered cotton sheet, softened by repeated washes and pleasant to the touch. Folded squarely beside her pillow lay a dark, blue spring, autumn jacket, crisply creased in the sharp, precise folding style of military personnel. That small detail stirred something inside her. She suddenly realized she felt no cold. April, the thought surfaced unbidden. In northern China, April brought warm winds and bright blue skies. The air smelled of freshly turned soil, and jujube trees in courtyards would be sprouting new buds. She climbed out of bed, bare feet touching the cool brick floor. She walked to the dressing table, sat down, and looked into the mirror. A stranger stared back. The face belonged to a girl of roughly 20. She had an oval face with fair, luminous skin, smooth as fine white porcelain. Her eyebrows curved gently, neither too thick nor too thin, as if carefully drawn. Her large, vivid eyes tilted slightly upward at the outer corners, holding soft warmth even when she was not smiling. She possessed a refined nose, naturally rosy lips, and a pointed chin. Every line of her features flowed soft and graceful. She was beautiful. The quiet, understated kind of beauty that grew more compelling the longer one looked. At first glance she seemed mild, upon second look, exquisite, by the third glance, hard to look away from. She carried a distinctive aura, calm yet not dull, gentle yet far from weak. "I've transmigrated," she whispered to herself, a flicker of excitement in her voice. She was surprised at her own reaction. Most people would break down in tears upon finding themselves transported to another era. Her very first thought had been, what a pretty face. No sooner had the words left her mouth than countless images, sounds, and fragments of memory flooded her mind in an overwhelming tide. The year was 1970, April. Location: Qingping County. Qingping was a small northern county. Most residents were government, staff families, and factory workers, enjoying a better standard of living than peasants from surrounding communes. When Jingshu's home stood within the county, government residential compound. The compound held 3 rows of 2-story brick houses, 1 unit per household. Her home occupied the easternmost unit in the second row, with a slightly larger courtyard than the neighbors. Her father, Wen Junping, had specifically chosen this house when allocations were made, so he could plant more trees. An old jujube tree grew in the courtyard, planted the year the family moved in. Its trunk was as thick as a rice bowl. Every autumn, it bore clusters of bright, red jujubes, enough to fill several basins once harvested. Against the wall stood a grape trellis. Eldest brother Su Yenin had begged their father to build it when he was 8 or 9 years old, after hearing how pleasant it was to sit beneath grapevines. When Junping had sourced wooden stakes and bamboo poles and erected a proper trellis. Later grapevines draped over the frame, casting cool shade in summer where the whole family would dine and relax. Lin Qingjun also planted henna flowers, planning to use their blooms to dye Jingshu's fingernails once summer arrived. In this new reality, when Jingshu was 20 years old, a student majoring in trade economics at a provincial university. She had been admitted in 1965, the final year before the national university entrance examination was suspended. At 15, she had been the youngest student in her cohort. Classes proceeded normally for 1 year. She filled many notebooks with careful notes and ranked among the top 3 students in her department. Then events unfolded as history recorded. Teaching was repeatedly suspended, resumed, and suspended again. Graduation kept getting delayed. Only recently had she finally received her undergraduate diploma. When she held that document, the original owner's eyes welled with tears. She had waited so long for this moment. She had never left campus. Professor Chen Yuzhen, a 50-something scholar in her department, wore old-fashioned reading glasses and spoke slowly yet possessed an incisive mind. Nicknamed Empress Chen by students behind her back, she was known for being stern in lectures and brutally strict when grading papers. Yet, she held a special fondness for Wen Jingshu. Professor Chen had taught thousands of students over her career, and very few earned her approval. But when Wen Jingshu submitted her first term paper, the professor read it 3 times and remarked in class, "This is what a proper academic paper looks like. What the rest of you turn and reads like junior, high, school journals." The entire classroom fell dead silent. Seated in a corner, Wen Jingshu burned with embarrassment, wishing she could vanish. From that point onward, Professor Chen took her under personal tutelage. As social conditions grew tense, many intellectuals were sent down to the countryside. Professor Chen herself faced precarious circumstances, yet she refused to leave the campus. She told Wen Jingshu, "Stay and study under me. Times are hard now, but knowledge is never wasted. Someday it will prove useful." Thus Wen Jingshu remained, pursuing postgraduate studies under her guidance. In that era of university shutdowns and intellectual reassignments, receiving private scholarly mentorship was an extraordinary stroke of luck. While peers labored in rural villages or urban factories, she read books, held academic discussions, and wrote papers in Professor Chen's home. Life was simple, yet her heart felt steady. Officially listed as a postgraduate student, she had already obtained her undergraduate diploma. That meant she qualified for job assignment. In 1970, university graduates did not hunt for jobs independently. Positions were allocated by the state. Postgraduate qualifications were extremely rare. Scarcely any person across Qingping County held such credentials. Even so, job assignments depended partly on academic credentials, largely on luck, and overwhelmingly on personal connections. Though the sum exceeded 100%, everyone in those days understood the unspoken truth. Connections meant everything, and without them one had virtually no chance. As when Jingshu processed the original host's memories, she grew impressed by her family's circumstances. Her father, Wen Zhongping, 41 years old, served as director of the Qingping County Public Security Bureau. A former soldier, he possessed sharp brows, bright eyes, and an upright bearing. Even in his 40s, in his dark, blue official uniform, he exuded righteous dignity. Folks joked that Director Wen looked like a movie actor and drew more glances on the street than his wife, though no one dared say so in front of Lin Qingjun. For all his authority outside the home, he transformed once he stepped through the courtyard gate. In Lin Qingjun's presence, he never raised his voice. Household decisions rested entirely with her. When Jingshu had once witnessed him return from work. Before he even entered the main house, Lin Qingjun called from the main hall, "No smoking today." Instantly, he pulled his cigarette pack and matches from his pocket and set them on the windowsill in the courtyard before stepping indoors. His reflex was well honed. Still, the couple shared deep affection. Wen Zhongping never thought it humiliating to defer to his wife. He openly told acquaintances, "Qingjun is sharp-minded. Who else should I listen to? I am good at catching criminals, but I understand nothing of household matters, so I rely completely on her." He said it without the slightest trace of shame. Lin Qingjun, for her part, chided him outwardly yet cared for him deeply. Whenever Wen Zhongping worked late overtime, she kept a lamp burning and a bowl of hot noodles waiting for him. Once he spent 3 consecutive days working a major case away from home. Though she snapped, "Let him stay away, I care not," she paced to the courtyard gate several times each night to scan the road, sighing each time he failed to appear. Young Wen Jingshu used to watch her mother's comings and goings from behind a window, feeling both amused and tender-hearted. Her mother, Lin Qingjun, 40 years old, held a section, chief position at the County Bureau of Agriculture. In her youth she had been a renowned beauty, with willow, leaf eyebrows and watery almond eyes. Suitors had lined up from one end of town to the other. Even past 40, she maintained her looks, appearing no older than her mid-30s and still turning heads in public. She held absolute sway within the household. When Zhongping handed over his full monthly salary without deduction, major and minor domestic decisions required her approval. Even her husband's clothing choices needed her consent. Though sharp-tongued, she treated everyone fairly. She showed no favoritism between her 2 adopted sons and her biological daughter in matters of food and clothing. When Jingshu inherited the best features of both parents, surpassing them in beauty. Her facial structure carried her father's dignified bone frame blended with her mother's soft, delicate lines, and her skin glowed like fine mutton, fat jade. Her personality leaned toward her mother's younger self, quiet, reserved, avoiding the spotlight yet perceptive of everything going on around her. As Professor Chen once commented, Jingshu keeps to herself, yet her inner vision is as clear as a polished mirror. She had 2 elder brothers, neither biologically related to her parents. The story stretched back more than 20 years. When Wen Zhongping served in the army, his superior officer Su had once saved his life in battle. Officer Su died in combat, leaving behind 2 infant boys aged 3 and 1. His wife, already in poor health, succumbed to grief and passed away shortly afterward. No other relatives could take the boys in, so they were sent to a temporary military nursery. When Zhengping visited them, the older child huddled silently in a corner. The younger cried from hunger, skin stretched tight over bony limbs. The little boy stared at Wen Zhengping with dark eyes full of fear and distrust. Wen Zhengping stayed half an hour, leaving with tear-reddened eyes. He had just transferred to civilian work and married Lin Qingjun. Their own daughter Wen Jingshu had recently been born. For days he could not stop thinking about the two orphan boys, lying awake night after night. One midnight, Lin Qingjun woke to find him sitting alone in the courtyard smoking, the cigarette tip glowing in darkness. She sat beside him. "What weighs on your mind?" He extinguished his cigarette and fell silent for a long while. "I visited old Sue's two boys." Beneath moonlight, Lin Qingjun spoke firmly. "Bring them home. Those poor children deserve care." Stunned, Wen Zhengping pulled her into a tight embrace without another word. That was how the Wen household gained 3 children. The eldest retained his birth surname, Su Yenin. The second took the Wen family name, Wen Yanhe. Wen Zhengping and Lin Qingjun strove for complete fairness. On birthdays, Lin Qingjun prepared extra dishes and a bowl of noodles topped with a poached egg for each child. When a boy earned good exam results, Wen Zhengping would take him to bookstores to buy whatever book he desired, regardless of cost. Still, as their only biological child and the youngest daughter, Wen Jingshu naturally received extra tenderness from her parents. Her 2 adoptive elder brothers understood this and bore no jealousy. On the contrary, they doted on her more than their parents did. They knew full well that without the Wen's kindness, they would have ended up in an orphanage. To them, Wen Jingshu was their dearest kin. Eldest brother Su Yenin, 25, inherited his birth father's military spirit. He enlisted at 16 and now served as a battalion commander in a military region in northeast China. He had earned promotion to platoon leader at 18 and company commander at 20 through genuine combat merit, aided also by connections from his birth father's side. Photos mailed home showed him tanned dark by the sun. Seeing one photograph, Wen Zhengping had paused for a long moment before quietly tucking it into a drawer. Every letter Su Yenin sent contained money, always with the line, "Buy nice snacks for Jingshu." Sometimes the paper bore creases or oil stains, clearly scribbled in haste inside army barracks. Second brother Wen Yanhe, 23, was brilliant academically. Admitted to the provincial medical college, after graduation he joined the county people's hospital. Last year he had become its youngest attending surgeon. The hospital director praised his steady, precise operating hands, calling him a born surgeon. While studying in the provincial capital, Wen Yanhe traveled regularly to visit his sister at her university. In winter, he would wait outside the women's dormitory, face numb with cold, clutching a paper bag of hot sugar, roasted chestnuts. When Wen Jingshu came downstairs and asked how long he had waited, he would claim he had just arrived. Yet an elderly janitor once told her he had stood there for nearly an hour. That was his nature. He never spoke of his own hardships. The family resided in that two-story brick building within the county government compound. Upstairs held 3 bedrooms, one large master bedroom for the parents, one shared by the 2 brothers, and a separate room for Wen Jingshu at the end of the hallway, bright and peaceful. Downstairs were the main hall, kitchen, and private courtyard. Reviewing all these facts in her mind, Wen Jingshu could not help but marvel inwardly. What an extraordinary family background. In her former modern life, she had been an unemployed English major postgraduate with pitiful savings in her bank account. Having traveled through time, she had become a 20-year-old graduate student majoring in trade economics. Her father was the chief of the Public Security Bureau, her mother a section chief of the Agriculture Bureau. She had 2 older brothers, one served in the military, and the other worked as a doctor. What could this be called? This was simply the heavens dealing her an SSR rank card. She was still waiting for assignment, only now, instead of waiting for provincial civil service exam results, she awaited state-appointed job placement. Jingshu, come down quickly, or the food will get cold. Lin Qingjuan's voice drifted up from downstairs, warm and casual, the tone only family used with one another. I'm coming, Wen Jingshu replied. She pulled on her navy blue spring, autumn jacket and headed downstairs at an unhurried pace. The main hall downstairs was modest, with a square table set in the center. On it lay several dishes, chive scrambled eggs, tofu tossed with green onions, sautéed wild greens, a bowl of shredded pickled vegetables, and a small saucer of soybean paste. In northern China in April, fresh green vegetables had just come into season, so this spread counted as quite lavish for the times. Two people sat by the table. When Jingshu appeared on the stairs, when Zhangping's expression softened at once, the stern chief Wen faded away, replaced by plain Dad Wen. Awake? Were you up late reading again last night? You look pale. How much coursework has Professor Chen piled on you? Staying up night after night won't do you any good. Before Wen Jingshu could speak, another voice cut in. That girl's doing important work, Lin Qingjun said without lifting her head as she laid out chopsticks. Do you think everyone's like you, coming home from work just to drink tea and read newspapers? When Zhangping shrank his neck under her retort and let out a sheepish chuckle. When Jingshu sat down and noticed several generous servings of chive scrambled eggs already in her bowl. Though only 2 eggs had been used, they were golden and fragrant, clearly cooked with a generous pour of cooking oil. Oil was a precious commodity in these years. Lin Qingjun would skimp on it for herself, yet never held back when frying eggs for her daughter. Jingshu, when Zhangping asked, "What did Professor Chen say? Can you keep pursuing your graduate studies?" Professor Chen told me to wait and see. The situation is uncertain. Conditions at the university are complicated right now. Even she is caught up in turbulent affairs, yet she still thinks of me. She advised me to settle my work assignment first. I can take graduate classes later. Professor Chen is truly a good-hearted person, Lin Qingjun sighed. Study hard under her guidance. Don't let her kindness go to waste. I know, when Jingshu nodded. Now that you have your undergraduate diploma in hand, can the assignment process get started? When Zhangping pressed. Yes, Professor Chen said it can. With my educational background, I should be placed within the commercial system. Exactly which department or work unit I get, though, depends on higher-level decisions. A job assignment, Lin Qingjun fell into thought. You studied trade economics. Where might they send you? The Supply and Marketing Cooperative? The Commerce Bureau? Or the department store? All 3 match your major, but pay and career prospects differ greatly. When Zhangping interjected, Jingshu has excellent grades and is a graduate student. Surely she won't get sent somewhere terrible. But this year's assignment policy emphasizes serving the grassroots and rural areas. Good postings are extremely limited. Your Public Security Bureau hires every year, yet they want graduates from political, legal academies. How could Jingshu, a trade economics major, possibly work there? When Zhangping was left speechless, he mumbled quietly, I was just saying, I didn't actually want her in the Public Security Bureau anyway. Our bureau is nothing great, always buried in overtime work. Remember that graduate from the normal college in our town last year? Brilliant student, and she ended up assigned to a primary school in a remote people's commune, 40 li from home. She still hasn't been transferred back. Would you be happy if Jingshu wound up in a place like that? When Zhangping immediately fell silent. Watching her father get lectured like a schoolboy, when Jingshu's lips twitched upward in amusement. Once, she had overheard a neighbor chatting with her mother. Old Wen has such a good temper. He never gets angry no matter what you say to him. Her mother had huffed, how dare he get angry, yet the corners of her mouth had lifted in a smile. Lin Qingjun went on. I've made inquiries. This year, the County Commerce Bureau has 1 opening, the Supply and Marketing Cooperative 2, and the Grain Bureau and Department Store each have 1 spot. Getting into the Commerce Bureau would be the best case scenario. If she's posted to a grassroots commune, level Supply and Marketing Cooperative to work behind the counter, life will be tough. When Jingshu swallowed her mouthful of tofu and spoke softly. Mom, anywhere will be fine. Whether it's the cooperative or the Commerce Bureau, I studied this field. I can step in and get things done wherever I go. Please don't worry so much. You make it sound easy, Lin Qingjun sighed. What if you get sent to a commune dozens of li away from home, with no decent place to stay? You're still a young girl. That would be all right too. The Commune Supply and Marketing Cooperative needs staff as well. When Zhangping chimed in timidly. Jingshu has a point. We shouldn't be picky. We take whatever assignment the higher-ups give us. One sharp glance from Lin Qingjun shut him right up. He picked up his enamel teacup, took a sip, found it empty, and set it down wordlessly. Lin Qingjun turned toward her daughter, her tone softening. Jingshu, it's not that I look down on lesser postings. I just hate the thought of you suffering. You've studied so hard for years under Professor Chen. How could I bear to see you dispatched to some out-of-the-way corner? Seeing the genuine concern in her mother's eyes, when Jingshu said, "Mom, I understand. But as you said, we don't hold full sway over assignments. No matter where I'm sent, I will work hard and not bring shame on you and Dad." Lin Qingjun looked at her calm, composed daughter, feeling a mix of heartache and pride. She reached over and ruffled her hair. "You've always been such a sensible child." "I get that from you, of course," when Jingshu offered a rare playful remark. Lin Qingjun laughed and gave her a light pat on the shoulder. Enough flattery. When Zhongping laughed along. Then he glanced at Lin Qingjun, his gaze brimming with unabashed fondness. 20 years into their marriage, he still looked at her the way he had during their courtship, bright-eyed, a little tentative, eager to please. Embarrassed by his stare, Lin Qingjun rolled her eyes. "Stop staring and eat." "Right, eating," when Zhongping grinned, shoveling rice into his bowl. "By the way, Yenha's got the day off. Why hasn't he gotten home yet?" Lin Qingjun glanced at the wall, mounted clock. The instant she finished speaking, the courtyard gate creaked open. "Mom, I'm home." A clear, bright voice echoed from the yard, followed by a tall figure appearing in the doorway. He stood 178 centimeters tall, dressed in a military, green spring, autumn jacket. He wore rimless glasses. Behind the lenses, his eyes were bright and warm with a hint of amusement. He had regular features and fair skin. "Yenha." Delight showed plainly on Lin Qingjun's face. When Yenha kicked off his shoes and stepped into the main hall, he nodded at Wen Zhongping and called out Dad. Then his gaze settled on Wen Jingshu, sweeping over her much like a doctor examining a patient. "Jingshu," he frowned slightly. "Your complexion has improved, but you still have dark circles under your eyes. Have you been staying up late reading again? I've told you countless times, late nights harm the liver. At your age you shouldn't neglect your health, or later on." Second brother, when Jingshu cut him off with a small smile. "I eat and sleep well at home, truly. Ask Mom if you don't believe me. She does look better than your last visit. She's put on some weight," Lin Qingjun confirmed. Satisfied, when Yenha sat down beside her, picked up a chopstick, full of wild greens for her, and filled his own bowl with rice. The whole family sat eating together. Lin Qingjun served him some scrambled eggs. "Eat more. Standing for surgeries at the hospital must be exhausting." "I'm used to it, Mom. Don't just feed me, give Jingshu some too. She's already got plenty." "Look at her bowl," Lin Qingjun pointed. When Jingshu's bowl was piled high with food. Glancing over, when Yenha chuckled. "Fair enough, you spread your favor pretty evenly." I do no such thing," Lin Qingjun retorted, then circled back to Wen Jingshu's assignment. "Yenha, have you made any inquiries through your connections?" When Yenha finished chewing his mouthful of food and set down his chopsticks, speaking earnestly. "The wife of a deputy director at the Commerce Bureau works as head nurse in our hospital. Her surname is Wang, and she's a decent person. I plan to go ask her for help. If she's willing to put in a good word, this might work out." "The Commerce Bureau?" Lin Qingjun's eyes lit up. "Perfect. Jingshu's major is trade economics. That would be such a good fit. The Commerce Bureau is far better than the cooperative. She'd have an office job, no counter work, very respectable." "It's not guaranteed. I can only ask first," when Yenha cautioned. "Assignment rules are tightly enforced these days. Connections don't always carry weight. Still, Jingshu is a graduate student. In Qingping Town, you can count graduate students on one hand. Her academic credentials are rare anywhere." "Exactly, a graduate student." Lin Qingjun nodded, voice swelling with pride. "How many graduate students are there in Qingping Town?" "Apart from Jingshu, only that 50-something-year-old man at the agricultural station. With credentials like hers, she holds her own anywhere." When Zhongping murmured softly, "Her graduate degree is still unfinished. We shouldn't boast too openly. Times are volatile. It pays to stay low-key. Tall trees catch much wind." "I know what I'm doing, no need to remind me," Lin Qingjun waved off his comment, ending that thread of conversation. When Yenha and Wen Jingshu exchanged a glance and both smiled. Scenes like this unfolded multiple times daily in their household, and they were long accustomed to it. When Yenha turned to his younger sister. "Don't worry. Your second brother is here for you." When Jingshu looked at him and nodded. "Oh, and we got a letter from Yenin," when Zhongping pulled a crumpled envelope from his shirt pocket. "It arrived yesterday. I stuffed it in my pocket and forgot to take it out." Lin Qingjun snatched it away. "You and your terrible memory. You did this last time too." She drew out 2 thin sheets of stationery and scanned them. Her expression softened. Yenin writes that the ice has thawed in the northeast. Spring comes late there, but it has finally arrived. Ice cracks rumble across the rivers, loud as firecrackers. She kept reading, her tone growing gentler. He also says, Jingshu shouldn't fret over her assignment. If she gets a bad posting, she can come join him in the northeast. He has connections there and could arrange a good position for her. He tells her to eat well and not to pinch pennies. When his military stipend comes next month, he'll send another 100 yuan home. 100 yuan. His total stipend is only 108 yuan. Why doesn't he keep more for himself? When Jingshu froze. Spring arrived far later in the northeast than inland. In April, harsh sand-laden winds could still blow. Out there, amid temperatures dozens of degrees below zero, her oldest brother stood guard, trained, and led troops, yet still worried over his sister's job and sent money home. Her eyelashes fluttered. She lowered her gaze and slowly picked at her rice grain by grain. Her second brother noticed the faint glisten in her eyes, but chose not to call attention to it. Big brother knows what he's doing. Just look after yourself. He's well, provided for in the army. You needn't worry about him. Going to the northeast? Nonsense. Lin Qingjun slapped the letter onto the table. A young girl traveling that far away? I'd never rest easy. Winters there hit -40 degrees. Your nose could freeze right off your face. What would she even do there? Yenin means well when Zhongping defended their oldest son, rare for him. He's lived there for years and knows people. He could look out for her if something went wrong. Good intentions don't change anything. Jingshu needs to stay close to us, Lin Qingjun stated firmly. I'm her mother, and that's final. If she moved to the northeast, I wouldn't see her for months on end. I'd lie awake missing her. Would you take responsibility for that? When Zhongping said nothing more, he could not bear the thought either. Lin Qingjun piled the last remaining pieces of scrambled eggs onto Jingshu's bowl. Jingshu, stay home these next few days and wait. I refuse to believe our whole family can't sort out one job assignment for you. Your father is a bureau chief. Your second brother has influence at the hospital. Though my work at the Agriculture Bureau is unrelated to commerce, I've worked within the government system long enough to know people. When Jingshu lifted her head. Mom, I truly am not afraid. I can perform well wherever I am. You know I always give my all at work. Lin Qingjun gazed at her calm daughter and ruffled her hair once again. After the meal, when Jingshu reached to clear the bowls, but when Yenha stood up first. I'll handle it. You sit. He stacked the dishes neatly and carried them toward the courtyard. Second brother, let me help, when Jingshu followed after him. When Yenha set the crockery in an enamel basin and twisted on the tap. Spring, chilled water gushed out, sharp and icy against skin. He shook off the cold and began washing. Let me do them. You just finished an all-night hospital shift. I've still got strength for washing dishes, when Yenha smiled, gently brushing her hands away. Just stand there and keep me company. Your hands are soft and delicate. Don't expose them to frigid running water and risk chapping. When Jingshu obeyed, she fetched a dry cloth from inside the house and dried each bowl as he passed it over. Brother and sister worked in perfect sync. No words needed to anticipate each other's movements. As soon as when Yenha finished a dish and held it out to the right, when Jingshu's hand would be there to receive it, wipe it dry, and stack it. Jingshu. Don't fear whatever assignment comes your way. He kept his eyes fixed on the bowls, scrubbing away the last traces of grease. Your second brother earns a salary and has built connections. Even if you receive an unfavorable posting, we can find ways to get you transferred. If all else fails, you could stay at the guest house next to the hospital while I lobby for you. It has hot running water and heating. It's even warmer than our house. When Jingshu paused mid-wipe, she looked at her second brother's profile. Only 23 years old, yet he carried himself with the steady composure of a much older man. Second brother, I'm really not afraid. Do I look like someone who shrinks from hardship? You don't. You've always been level-headed. While other children threw tantrums, you would sit quietly and get on with whatever needed doing. Exactly. So trust me. No matter where they assign me, I will thrive. Someday I might even end up looking out for you. I look forward to the day you look out for me, when Yenha laughed. He handed her the final bowl, shook water from his fingers, and pulled out a handkerchief to dry his hands. Then he walked over to his canvas satchel, rummaged inside, and brought back a paper package, holding it out to Jingshu. What's this? She took it and unwrapped it to find several pieces of White Rabbit creamy candy. They're blue, and white wrappers bore the illustration of an upright, eared white rabbit. A colleague went on a business trip to Shanghai and brought these back. I saved a few for you. Staring at the candies, when Jingshu's eyes stung with sudden tears. She bowed her head, twisting the candy wrappers between her fingers, remaining silent for fear her voice would crack. What's wrong? When Yenha grew flustered. You don't like them? I thought you loved these. I remember when you were little, every time I came home you'd ask whether I'd brought candy. No, when Jingshu sniffled, her voice thick and nasal. I like them. She lifted her head, eyes glistening yet smiling. Thank you, second brother. Seeing her tear-streaked smile when Yenha's heart melted. No thanks needed. Come inside, it's chilly out here. April had arrived, and spring was unfolding. Everything was starting anew. She drew a deep breath and thought silently to herself, I have arrived in the 1970s. A graduate student in trade economics. The daughter of a public security bureau chief and an agriculture bureau section chief. Two elder brothers who, though not blood related, loved her dearly. This starting point far outshone trying for civil service jobs in the modern era. Come on, we'll be late, Lin Qingjun called from the doorway and glanced back at Wen Jingshu. Sort out your own lunch. There's food in the kitchen. Got it, Mom, Wen Jingshu nodded. Wen Jumping turned back after stepping outside, pulled 2 yuan from his pocket and set it on the table. Buy yourself something nice for lunch. Don't make do with scraps. Lin Qingjun shot him a sharp look but said nothing. She took his arm and they left together. The courtyard gate clicked shut. Bicycle bells jingled and faded into the distance. Upstairs, second brother's room stayed quiet, curtains drawn. He had pulled an all-night hospital shift and must have just fallen asleep. Then a crisp chime rang inside her mind. Ding, limited time flash, sales system bound successfully. Host, Wen Jingshu. Binding time, 8:50 a.m., April X, 1970. A translucent light, blue, white floating screen materialized in thin air right before her eyes. When Jingshu blinked, then blinked again. This was no hallucination. A faint electric tingle pulsed through her brain, and her consciousness swam for a moment. Parallel timeline. Memory resonance. The memories belonging to the original host flooded in. At first, she thought they belonged to a stranger. Yet now, stirred by the system's activation, she understood those memories were her very own. Under the system's influence, she had traveled from 1970 to live more than 20 years in the 21st century. Then her sitting in a civil service examination hall in 2024 was pulled back once more to 1970. 2 parallel timelines, one and the same person. One path, learning English, struggling amid the AI boom, sending out resumes for 3 fruitless months, adrift inside an examination hall for civil service recruitment. The other path, here in 1970, a trade economics graduate student, daughter of senior government officials, and now this flash, sales system materialized out of thin air. So that was how it was. This was no case of a cuckoo driving another bird from its nest, nor was it a soul taking over a dead body. The original soul was her. She was Wen Jingshu. She had been Wen Jingshu all along. She owed no one any guilt. 3 flash, sale windows daily, 8 to 9 a.m., 12 to 1300 hours p.m., 20 to 2100 hours p.m. time remaining in current window, 9 minutes and 21 seconds. She took a deep breath and turned her gaze toward the glowing screen. Instructions for the time, limited flash, sale system. 1. There are 3 flash, sale windows each day, 1 hour long apiece. 2. Between 1 and 10 products go on sale each window, offered in limited quantities while stocks last. Prices are denominated in modern day RMB. The exchange rate against 1970 currency is 100:1. Meaning a system, listed price of 1 yuan deducts 0.01 yuan in 1970 era currency. 4. There is no purchase limit. Buy as many units as are available. Goods may be retrieved into the real world. Their origins will be automatically rationalized. Unretrieved goods can be stored permanently in the infinite capacity system warehouse. When Jingshu's eyes widened when she read Rule 4. Buy as many as were available? Could she buy every single item? Everything could sit safely in the system warehouse, taking up no physical space. She hurried on to the product list. Current window products time remaining, 9 minutes 18 seconds, 1. 5-liter corn oil times 200 units system price, 50 yuan actual deduction, 0.5 yuan. Men's summer cotton, Linen loungewear light gray / navy times 200 sets system price. 50 yuan / set actual deduction. 0.5 yuan 3. 600. Gram flavored pork sausages times 1000 units system price. 7 yuan / sausage actual deduction. 0.07 yuan. Fully automatic soy milk maker 1.2 L. Programmable timer times 50 units system price. 199 yuan actual deduction. 1.99 yuan 5. Daily nut gift box 30 sachets times 300 units system price. 89 yuan actual deduction. 0.89 yuan. Vintage bow cross. Body bag lightweight nylon. Off. White / khaki / black times 200 units system price. 13 yuan actual deduction. 0.13 yuan 7. Instant. Noodle packs 5, count times 1000 units system price. 15 yuan actual deduction. 0.15 yuan. Power bank 20,000 mAh, dual. USB port times 100 units system price. 89 yuan actual deduction. 0.89 yuan 9. Rechargeable industrial electric drill with bit set times 50 units system price. 299 yuan actual deduction. 2.99 yuan. Thick fleece, lined electric, scooter windshield, wind and water, resistant times 300 units system price. 35 yuan actual deduction. 0.35 yuan, when Jingshu owned a passbook opened for her by Lin Qingjun. It held pocket money and new year gifts sent by her parents and 2 elder brothers. The balance printed on the passbook read 572 yuan. For this era, that was a substantial sum. Her father Wen Zhongping earned 97 yuan a month. Her mother Lin Qingjun brought home 78. Second brother Wen Yanhe made 43. Eldest brother Su Yenin served as a battalion commander in the northeast. With subsidies and post allowances, he took home roughly 120 yuan each month. Combined, the whole household earned around 330 yuan monthly. 572 yuan amounted to nearly 2 months of total family income. She had clung to the money, unwilling to spend it. Adding 15 yuan cash she kept on hand, her total came to 587 yuan. Now the time had come to spend it. When Jingshu bit her lip, hovering her fingers above the glowing screen, she began placing orders. Corn oil. Household supplies were running low. Only a few days before, Lin Qingjun had complained to neighbors about their insufficient oil coupons. 5 liters of corn oil weighed 10 jin. On the black market, a single jin of soybean oil fetched more than 3 yuan. 10 jin would cost over 30. Within the system, a whole 5-liter barrel cost merely 50 cents. She bought 50 barrels for 25 yuan. They could sit in system storage, ready for use whenever she needed them. Her gaze lingered on the 1,000-unit stock of pork sausages for 2 seconds. 1,000 sausages at 7 cents apiece totaled 70 yuan. If she ended up assigned to work at the supply and marketing cooperative, she would meet many people behind the counter. These sausages would make fine holiday gifts. Her family could eat them, and if she got posted to the procurement department, they would serve as valuable hard-to-get goods. Buy them all. 1,000 sausages, 70 yuan. 50 packs of instant noodles, 7 yuan and 50 cents. On days when cooking felt like too much trouble, she could boil a pack and toss in wild greens for a quick meal. 250 individual servings would last quite a while. 30 boxes of mixed nuts for 26 yuan and 70 cents. Nutritious snacks. She could send several boxes to her eldest brother, set some aside for her second brother, and let her parents sample them too. For the loungewear, she reasoned that 1 set per person would not be enough for frequent changes. She stocked up 20 sets at 50 cents each, 10 yuan total. 5 family members, for sets apiece, plenty for rotation. 1 soy milk maker for 1 yuan and 99 cents. Better to keep it stored even if power supply in this era was unstable. Mental arithmetic raced through her head. 25 for oil, 70 for sausages, 6 and a half for bags, 7 and a half for instant noodles, 26.7 for nuts, 10 for loungewear, roughly 2 for the soy milk maker. Grand total, 147 yuan and 69 cents. When Jingshu drew a deep breath and tapped confirm payment, text flashed across the screen, payment successful. Total deducted, 147.69 yuan. Remaining balance, 439.31 yuan. Goods transferred to system warehouse and may be retrieved at any time. Warehouse capacity is unlimited. A smaller line popped up immediately after. Reminder, goods retrieved will appear with a plausible real-world origin. Choose appropriate moments for retrieval to avoid drawing unwanted attention. Next flash sale, 12 to 1300 hours today. Staring at her remaining balance of 439.31 yuan, when Jingshu felt reassured. She would have ample funds for the next sale. What she had bought for 147 yuan would easily be worth 3,000 yuan on the black market. Her father earned 97 yuan each month. This morning she had spent an amount equivalent to 1.5 months of his salary, yet acquired provisions that could sustain the whole family for 1 or 2 years. This was her golden finger. The countdown on the screen hit 0. The product list grayed out. A notice appeared, current flash sale concluded. Next sale, 12 to 1300 hours today. Please be ready. Another round would begin at noon. She wondered what goods would show up next: milk powder? White sugar? Cotton cloth? Industrial coupons? Whatever turned up, she still had more than 400 yuan left in her passbook, enough for multiple buying sprees. From now on, she would refer to 2024 as her past life baseline and 1970 as her present life current timeline. When Jingshu sat beneath the jujube tree until her heartbeat steadied, then rose slowly and walked back toward the house. She padded quietly upstairs and slipped into her room, closing the door softly behind her. She did not click the latch. The sharp sound would carry too far in the quiet morning. She flipped through trade economics. Every page bore dense handwritten notes. Some paragraphs were underlined in red, others marked with question marks. Margins held jottings: point to verify, discuss with Professor Chin, needs further reference material. She could not help but marvel. This was what a genuine top-notch student's notes looked like. In her past life she had also held a postgraduate degree, yet much of her studying had been utilitarian, done for exams, papers, graduation. Now her passion for learning felt genuine. She truly loved reading enough to pour her thoughts into a textbook. I must honor all the hard work I've put in these past few years. She pulled a fresh notebook from her drawer and filled several pages with reading reflections on trade economics. When finished, she closed it and tucked it away. Leaning back in her chair, she gazed out the window, lost in thought. She already had a plan for errands she needed to run today. Those 1,000 pork sausages and 50 barrels of corn oil in system storage had to be brought into the household little by little. Taking too much at once would invite impossible to explain questions. Today she would retrieve 10 sausages and 1 barrel of oil. She could say a schoolmate from her provincial college had secured them for her. She really had many former classmates. Those admitted to university in those days usually came from well-connected households. Some worked within commercial bureaus or food companies, with access to scarce supplies. The story sounded perfectly believable. Glancing at the small desk clock, she saw it was 10:20. Her second brother would likely wake around 11. Night shift workers generally slept only 3 or 4 hours. She had half an hour to step outside to fetch supplies. When Jingshu walked over to the wardrobe and opened its doors, she owned quite a collection of clothes. Lin Qingjun doted on her only daughter, and her 2 brothers frequently bought garments for her. The hangers overflowed: winter wool overcoats, cotton, padded jackets, wool scarves, lightweight woolen coats and knit cardigans for spring and autumn, summer floral blouses, midi skirts, and that white dacron short-sleeved shirt. A neat row of shoes stood below: square, toed leather shoes, lace, up leather shoes, cloth shoes, all well fitted and fine quality. She selected a light-weight gray woolen coat, paired it with a dark blue midi skirt, and slipped on her black lace, up leather shoes. She glanced at herself in the round mirror. She looked nice. Time to go. She descended the stairs with deliberate soft footsteps. Pausing outside her second brother's door, she pressed an ear against the wood. All remained quiet inside. Past the family compound gate stretched the main street of Qingping County. It was not wide. To Liberation, brand trucks could barely pass one another. Rows of brick, gray, tiled single-story houses lined both sides. Wooden shop signs hung at doorways: Qingping County State Run Barber Shop, Red Star Supply, and Marketing Cooperative, Workers, and Peasants Restaurant. The characters were painted bright red, still vivid despite wind and sun, evidence of regular upkeep, when Jingshu walked 5 minutes along the main thoroughfare before turning down a narrow alley. Tall brick walls rose on either side, newly sprouted red tendrils of ivy creeping over them. Few people passed through this lane. She remembered it as a secluded spot, ideal for retrieving goods. She scanned ahead and behind. Nobody. Both ends of the alley stood empty. Taking a deep breath, she mentally commanded, "Retrieve 10 pork sausages." A cardboard box materialized in her hands, roughly 40 centimeters long, 30 wide, 20 high. Printed across it were the words "flavored pork sausages, net weight, 600 g times 10 units." She lifted the lid. 10 plump sausages sat neatly stacked, ruddy, glossy, marbled with fat, looking mouth-wateringly tasty. Her mouth watered. She wrapped the box in the hem of her coat and held it against her chest. Next she thought, retrieve 1 barrel of corn oil. A 5-liter plastic oil barrel appeared on the ground at her feet, its yellow label printed with corn oil, non-GMO, first press. She picked it up and frowned. That transparent plastic barrel and colorful printing looked far too modern for this era. But according to the system description, retrieved goods would get automatically rationalized to fit the time period. She blinked. The plastic barrel transformed into a white enamel bucket stamped with 3 red characters, edible oil. The opening was sealed with oil, proof paper secured by twisted hemp rope, easy to carry. That's much better. She nodded in satisfaction. One hand gripped the enamel oil bucket, the other cradled the box of sausages. Like a hard, working little ant, she made her way slowly out of the alley. Right at the lane entrance, she ran into neighbor Aunt Wang. "Why, Jingshu? Arms full of things. Where have you been?" When Jingshu smiled. "Hello, Aunt Wang. A schoolmate from my provincial university, whose family works in the food bureau, managed to get some pork sausages and corn oil for me. They just arrived." Aunt Wang's eyes lit up. She leaned forward for a look. "Corn oil? Let me see. My, this oil is so clear and fragrant. Better smelling than the soybean oil sold at the cooperative. Jingshu, could you spare me 2 Jean? I've run out of oil coupons and we've been eating plain pickled vegetables for days." An idea crossed Wen Jingshu's mind. Aunt Wang's household was well off and had ready cash. The 2 families got along well, and Aunt Wang often brought food over to their home. Selling her a small quantity would earn her cash and goodwill. She knew open-air private trading was forbidden in this period. Still, neighbors occasionally shared scarce provisions among themselves. As long as no large-scale business was conducted, most people turned a blind eye. Since Aunt Wang herself had asked, agreeing would not be improper. "Very well, Aunt Wang. I can spare you some," Wen Jingshu replied readily. "But these are for my own family, so I cannot give you very much. 2 Jean is fine. 2 Jean will be more than enough." Aunt Wang beamed and hurried home. "Wait right here. I'll fetch a basin and money." When Jingshu stood waiting, her arms growing tired from holding the box, she set the oil bucket down. Aunt Wang quickly returned carrying an enamel basin and several paper banknotes. "Come on, pour 2 Jean for me." She set the basin on the ground and held out the money. 6 yuan. 3 yuan per Jean. Is that fair? When Jingshu did not take the money at once, she carefully poured golden corn oil from the bucket into the basin. The liquid glinted brilliantly in sunlight. Aunt Wang squatted beside her, murmuring, "Fine oil, excellent oil. Even clearer than what the supply and marketing cooperative sells." When Jingshu had no precise sense of exactly how much 2 Jean looked like. Afraid of changing Aunt Wang, she poured a little extra. The golden pool spreading across the basin bottom looked substantial. She stopped pouring, estimating she had given close to 2.5 Jean. "Aunt Wang, please check. I cannot judge weights perfectly. I hope it is sufficient." Aunt Wang stared at the ample pool of oil and broke into a wide grin. "More than sufficient. You are such an honest-hearted girl. That's well over 2.5 Jean. I cannot accept this much for the price of 2 Jean. It is all right, please enjoy it." When Jingshu resealed the bucket's paper cover and retightened the hemp rope, Aunt Wang pressed the 6 yuan notes firmly into her palm. "Take it. I won't let you lose out. What a kind-hearted girl you are. Whoever marries you will be fortunate." When Jingshu's cheeks flushed faintly, she smiled without reply and slipped the money into her pocket. "Aunt Wang, take good care of the oil. I need to head home, lunch needs preparing." "Of course, go on." Aunt Wang held her basin happily. "Tell your mother to drop by my house for a meal sometime. I've been saving 2 pieces of cured meat for ages. I'll cook them when she comes." When Jingshu smiled and acknowledged the invitation, gathered up her things and walked home. It was nearly 11 o'clock. She slipped quietly into the kitchen, placed the pork, sausage box on the upper shelf of the cupboard, and set the enamel oil bucket on the floor beside it. Inside the cupboard sat a small sack of wheat flour, a clay jar of rice, several eggs, a small pot of lard, and a neat row of seasoning jars. Surveying her supplies, when Jingshu decided on lunch, fried pork sausages with eggs, wild, green, and tofu salad, and steamed white rice. She fished tofu out of the water basin, diced it, tossed it with wild greens, seasoned with salt, and dripped in a few precious drops of sesame oil that Lin Qingjun kept carefully hidden. She would later blame the missing sesame oil on her second brother. Fragrant steam escaped from beneath the rice pot lid. She lit another burner, poured in a little corn oil, fried Sichuan peppercorns until aromatic and fished them out, then slid slices of pork sausage into the hot pan. Sizzling loudly, the sausage slices curled and browned, releasing rich meat aroma that filled the whole kitchen. She stirred quickly, poured in beaten egg. The eggs puffed up, wrapping around the sausage slices. A final sprinkle of chopped green onions finished the dish. Golden, yellow mixed with ruddy pink, steaming hot. Footsteps sounded on the staircase. Jingshu. When Yenha's voice sounded thick with recent sleep. Are you cooking? Have you woken up, second brother? When Jingshu poked her head out of the kitchen and saw him with messy hair, squinting without his glasses, she could not help smiling. Lunch is almost ready. Go wash your face. When Yenha stepped to the kitchen door and sniffed. What smells so wonderful? Fried pork sausage with eggs. A schoolmate whose family works in the food bureau got these for me. They just arrived today. When Jingshu lifted the plate for him to see. I also gave Aunt Wang some corn oil. I poured her a little extra, and she was delighted. When Yenha nodded. A schoolmate connected to the food bureau? That sounds reliable. But try not to give away supplies next time. Our own household still needs these things. I understand, second brother. Go wash up. The steamed rice was done, each grain plump and translucent. She served 2 bowls and set them on the square table in the main room. When Yenha returned after washing his face, putting on his glasses to regain his neat, refined appearance. He sat down, picked up his chopsticks, and sampled the sausage and egg dish. Delicious. Your cooking skills have improved a great deal, Jingshu. That's only because Mother is not here watching over me today, when Jingshu said cheerfully while eating rice. Then you can do the cooking whenever Mother is out. Fine by me, as long as you do not mind if I have an off day. Watching him eat with obvious enjoyment, she spoke thoughtfully. Second brother, do you think if I get assigned to the supply and marketing cooperative, I will get easy access to tasty food? Chewing his food, when Yenha replied vaguely. Working at the cooperative is all right. Standing behind the counter can be tiring, but you would have insider access to goods. No long queues, no need to beg favors. That is quite a nice perk. That is true enough. When Jingshu nodded and took a bite of her wild, green, and tofu salad. I would accept any posting really. I just hope my assignment is settled soon so Mother stops worrying over me. This morning she acted as if I were marching off to war. When Yenha laughed. That is just Mother. Sharp, tongued yet soft-hearted. For all her grumbling, you are her favorite child. Did you see how much food she piled onto your plate at breakfast? Mine and Father's portions combined were less than yours. When Jingshu pressed her lips together in a faint smile, said nothing, and bowed her head to eat. Second brother, I've got something to tell you. She suddenly lowered her voice, looking mysteriously secretive. What is it? Aunt Wang insisted on giving me 6 yuan just now. I couldn't get her to take it back no matter how hard I tried. The corners of Wen Jingshu's mouth curved upward. Do you think I'm just too honest? She paid me for 2 jin, yet I poured her at least 2.5 jin. Still, Aunt Wang was overjoyed. Besides, she looked after me when I was little. When Yenha laughed at her words. You are just too soft-hearted. You only charged for 2 jin while giving her 2.5. If Mother finds out, she'll lecture you for being bad at managing money. Then don't tell her. When Jingshu blinked. This will be our little sibling secret. Very well, our little secret. When Yenha shook his head with a smile. But don't do that again. Charge the proper price. You are not running a charity. I know. When Jingshu nodded obediently. Second brother, you're the best. You won't give me away. Seeing her docile manner, when Yenha's heart softened. All right, enough flattery. I'll wash the dishes after you finish eating. Go upstairs and rest. Sit still, don't get up. When Jingshu had no choice but to remain seated. Her family treated her so well, and she longed to contribute more around the house. She watched her second brother carry the bowls away, and soon the sound of running water and clinking tableware drifted over. Thinking of the goods stored inside her system warehouse, she felt reassured. There was no rush. She would take things step by step. Life will keep getting better, when Jingshu told herself silently in her mind. Her thoughts drifted toward 12 noon. Less than an hour remained. She wondered what fine items would refresh this round. Milk powder? White sugar? Cotton cloth? No matter what showed up, the more than 400 yuan in her bank book ought to be sufficient. Almost there. Just a little longer until 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock sharp. Ding! When Jingshu sat straight, her eyes fixed on the translucent virtual screen hanging in mid-air. Then her smile froze. Current time, slot goods remaining time, 59 minutes 58 seconds, limited, time unique, merchant routes map, weaving SSR, tier active skill times 1 system listed price, 100,000 yuan actual deduction, 1,000 yuan. That was all? When Jingshu blinked and read the virtual screen from top to bottom 3 times over. Only this single item? The morning flash sale had at least 10 kinds of goods, food, drink, clothing, and sundries, a rich assortment. The noon offering, however, displayed nothing but this lone skill, like the last leftover piece of stock before a store shut its doors for good. She stared at 100,000 yuan, then at 1,000 yuan, and closed her eyes in speechlessness. Calm despair laced her tone as she spoke. System, are you serious? The virtual screen gave no response. 1,000 yuan. Her father, when jumping, earned 97 yuan a month. 1,000 yuan equaled roughly 10 months of his salary. Her mother, Lin Qingjun, made 78 yuan monthly. It would take her nearly a full year to save that sum. Combined, the couple would have to go without spending any money for 4 to 5 months to gather that amount. Well, at least it was not a sum impossible to scrape together, even selling off the whole family. When Jingshu counted mentally, she still needed over 560 yuan to reach 1,000. Leaning back against her chair, she stared at the ceiling, her mind racing rapidly. 560 odd yuan was neither an enormous nor trivial sum. If she sold some of the oil and sausages from her system warehouse and got a little extra money from her family, she should be able to gather the full amount. Most importantly, she had to acquire the skill. She reread the skill description carefully, analyzed scarce and surplus supplies within a 300-kilometer radius, generating an optimal trade route map, precisely judge which goods to sell, which locations to target, achievable selling prices. This skill seemed tailor-made for her, a postgraduate majoring in trade economics. If she obtained this skill and was assigned to the procurement section of the supply and marketing cooperative, she would thrive. She would know exactly which factories held excess stock, which communes lacked chemical fertilizer, and which channels bypassed coupon requirements. Everything would be crystal clear in her mind. Other procurement staff wore themselves out rushing from place to place. She would possess something akin to divine insight. A 50% higher profit margin and 100% faster goods arrival. What did that mean? Where others earned 10 yuan, she would earn 15. Where others waited half a month for deliveries, goods would arrive within a week for her. In the planned economy era, securing goods, securing them quickly, and securing them cheaply represented core competitive advantage. When Jingshu leaned back in her chair and stared at the ceiling, her thoughts spinning fast. If she sold the goods she had bought that morning on the black market, she would certainly raise enough money. But direct sales carried great risk. Speculative trading was strictly cracked down on in this era, and even her father, the police chief, could not shield her. She was caught in an awkward predicament. She held goods, but could not legally offload them. When Jingshu bit her lip and her gaze fell on the fine print at the bottom of the virtual screen. If not purchased today, this skill will appear at 12 o'clock every subsequent day until sold. In other words, starting today, this skill would occupy the top position in the merchandise list every noon. She could see it, yet she could not possess it, left staring helplessly. She sat upright, picked up a pen on the table, and jotted 2 lines in her notebook. Earn money, gather 1,000 yuan within 1 week. 2. Gain entry to the procurement section of the supply and marketing cooperative. For the first goal, she needed startup capital. She could pass along some oil and sausages to neighbors like Aunt Wang for cash. After several rounds of turnover, 1,000 yuan would be within reach. For the second goal, she needed help from her family. With the official position of procurement officer at the supply and marketing cooperative, she could circulate system, source supplies through formal institutional channels, generating money from money and accumulating profits. She would no longer face constant cash shortages. The more Wen Jingshu thought about this path, the more feasible it seemed. She turned and walked out of her room, treading softly down the stairs. In the main hall downstairs, Lin Qingjun had returned at some point. She sat beside the square table drinking water, with a stack of documents beside her, presumably materials she had brought home from work. "Mother? Why are you home? Aren't you supposed to be at work?" When Jingshu walked over and sat across from her. "What did you have for lunch?" "I made stir-fried eggs with pork sausages. I ate 2 big bowls." When Jingshu patted her stomach to show she was full. "Pork sausages? Where did those come from?" Lin Qingjun set down her teacup, her brows drawing together slightly. When Jingshu had long prepared an explanation, she smiled brightly. "A classmate of mine in provincial capital works for the food company. He set some aside for me, and they just arrived today. I passed 2 jean of oil along to Aunt Wang, and she was so happy she insisted on paying me." Lin Qingjun gave her a glance and did not press for further details. "You must be quite close with this classmate." We get along well." When Jingshu brushed past the topic, she leaned forward, resting both hands on her knees. "Mother, I want to discuss something with you." "Speak." Lin Qingjun lifted her enamel mug and sipped water slowly. "I want to get assigned to the procurement section of the supply and marketing cooperative." Lin Qingjun's hand holding the mug paused. She lifted her eyes, surprise in her gaze. "The procurement section? Where did this idea come from? Earlier you said any assignment would suit you. I wouldn't mind working behind the counter, but the procurement section fits my strengths better. My major is trade economics. Procurement section work involves sourcing supplies, negotiating prices, signing contracts, and allocating materials, all things I studied. Working the counter means selling goods. Procurement means buying goods. I studied trade, not retail sales. The procurement section lets me make the best use of my expertise." Lin Qingjun stayed silent, yet surprise gradually gave way to approval in her eyes. She folded her arms across her chest, signaling for her daughter to continue. Recognizing this familiar posture, Wen Jingshu seized the opening. "Also, during my years studying in the provincial capital, I met classmates whose families hold positions in the commercial bureau, food companies, and materials administration bureau. If I get into the procurement section, those connections could prove useful." She spoke naturally, though inwardly she felt uneasy. Those classmates truly existed, yet their bonds with her were not nearly so deep. Still, with the goods stored in her system warehouse, she required no help from those classmates. She herself represented a massive supply source. The procurement section is indeed a desirable posting, but openings there are not obtained merely by wishing for them. It is a coveted position many people compete for. That is why I wanted to talk it over with you. When Jingshu's eyes sparkled. "Mother, you know people in the commercial bureau. Could you make some inquiries?" Second brother mentioned that the husband of head nurse Wang at his hospital is deputy director of the commercial bureau. Perhaps he could put in a good word for me. "Jingshu, where did all this determination come from? This morning you said any assignment would do, yet now you have set your sights on procurement section and mapped out potential connections." When Jingshu smiled, a touch of sheepishness in her expression, she reached for the kettle on the table, refilled Lin Qingjun's mug, and held it out to her like a precious offering. "I've thought things through. All those years of schooling, all the lessons teacher Chen taught me, were not meant for me just to stand behind a sales counter. I am not saying counter work is bad, but why not strive for better opportunities when they exist?" She paused, her tone growing earnest. "I also don't want you and father to worry. This morning you looked as if you were marching off to war, and it pained me to see it. I want you to rest assured. I am not someone waiting for good fortune to fall from the sky. I am capable and bold. If you can point me toward the path, I will walk it myself." "Very well. I will make inquiries for you." Lin Qingjun's voice turned slightly hoarse. She cleared her throat and regained her usual crisp tone. "I do have acquaintances within the commercial bureau. Tomorrow I will go speak with them. Second brother can also talk with head nurse Wang. We will pursue this from 2 angles." "Wonderful." When Jingshu's eyes crinkled into bright crescents. "Still, Jingshu," Lin Qingjun's tone shifted to solemnity, tapping her fingertip against the tabletop. "Procurement section work is grueling. You will travel frequently to source goods, dealing with all sorts of people. Can a young woman handle that? I can. When Jingshu answered without hesitation, she straightened her back and lifted her chin slightly. Mother, I may be quiet, but I am not bad spoken. I know what ought to be said and what ought not. I am quite bold too. Which other little girl climbed jujube trees to dig out bird nests when we were small? Lin Qingjun laughed and gave her daughter's shoulder a light pat. Don't remind me of that incident. Father nearly threw the ladder away. He was terrified. He thought I would fall and went pale with fright. Meanwhile, I sat on a tree branch clutching 2 bird eggs and shouted, "Look, father." He almost fainted. Lin Qingjun shook her head, amused. Enough banter. Go tell your second brother to arrange a conversation with head nurse Wang. Got it. When Jingshu stood to head upstairs, then spun back around. Mother. Yes. I also want to borrow some money from you. Lin Qingjun arched an eyebrow. Borrow money? Don't you have several hundred yuan in your bank book? Is that not enough? It is not enough. When Jingshu bit her lip. After a moment's hesitation, she spoke plainly. She sat back down across from Lin Qingjun, hands resting flat on the table, earnest as a student reporting to a teacher. I want to run a small side business. My classmate has access to scarce goods that do not require ration coupons, but they demand cash payment. I want to buy larger stock and resell it for a profit. I could also bring nice things home for the family. Once she finished speaking, she lowered her head, her eyelashes fluttering like a child who had done something wrong. Out of the corner of her eye, she closely watched Lin Qingjun's reaction. Lin Qingjun stared at her for several long seconds, her gaze sharp enough to see through her daughter. Jingshu, tell me the truth. Are you hiding something from me? When Jingshu's heart raced, yet her outward composure held. She met Lin Qingjun's eyes directly, her expression sincere, with a hint of ingratiating smile. I am not hiding anything, mother. I simply want to earn more money. Once I start working, there will be countless expenses. I do not wish to rely entirely on the family. Besides, my classmate truly has those connections. It would be wasteful not to take advantage of them. Didn't you always say good opportunities expire if unused? Lin Qingjun was momentarily caught off guard by that quote. She studied Wen Jingshu a while longer and sighed, her tone mixing helplessness and indulgence. How much do you need? Joy surged through Wen Jingshu, yet she kept her demeanor calm. She hesitated deliberately before answering. 300, no 500? Immediately, she regretted asking for so much and prepared to correct herself to 300, but Lin Qingjun had already stood up. Wait here. Shortly afterward, Lin Qingjun returned holding a stack of banknotes. 50 notes, 500 yuan total. She pushed the money across the table toward Wen Jingshu. Take it. I will pay you back. Wen Jingshu's voice held a slight thickened quality. Though her mouth tugged upward, her eyes glistened. No need to pay me back. Lin Qingjun waved her hand and turned to tidy documents on the table. Just do well and don't bring shame to our family. If you truly make a success of yourself, this small sum means nothing. When Jingshu collected the money, circled around the table, and hugged Lin Qingjun from behind. Lin Qingjun stiffened. Physical displays of affection were uncommon in their household. Wen Zhongping liked embraces, but Lin Qingjun always pushed him away, finding such gestures overly sentimental. She patted the hands wrapped around her waist. You are far too old for this sort of thing. I don't care. I want to hug you. Lin Qingjun said nothing further and did not pull away her hands. Footsteps echoed on the staircase. When Yenha's voice drifted down, thick with drowsiness from just waking up. Mother? Jingshu? What are you two doing? When Jingshu released her mother, quickly wiped the moisture from her eyes, and raised her voice. Nothing special. You're awake, second brother? I need to talk to you about something. What is it? He stepped into the main hall. He noticed Lin Qingjun's reddened eyes and Wen Jingshu's damp eyelashes. He paused, glancing back and forth between them. Did you two quarrel? No. Both mother and daughter replied in unison. When Yenha looked at each of them in turn and wisely dropped the subject. All right, what did you want to discuss? Second brother, please arrange a visit with head nurse Wang. I would like to call at her home to talk about getting into the procurement section. When Yenha set down his cup and nodded. I will go to the hospital this afternoon. Head nurse Wang is quite amiable. Her husband Zhou Guodong serves as deputy director of the commercial bureau. If we win head nurse Wang over, Deputy Director Zhou will be much easier to approach. Second brother, do you think I stand a real chance of getting that position? When Jingshu propped her chin in her hands, elbows resting on the table. Expectation and nervousness flickered in her eyes, like a student waiting for exam results. When Yenha considered carefully, "You have a good shot. There are barely any postgraduates in the whole Qingfeng County. The procurement section needs people who understand economics and trade. Your educational background makes you a rare talent. Add mother's connections, mine, plus your provincial, capital classmates, your overall competitiveness is strong." However, when Yenha's tone turned serious, his gaze steady behind his glasses. Procurement work is exhausting. Constant travel by train, overnight stays in guest houses, and trips out to rural areas. Wind and rain will be part of daily life. Can you endure that as a young woman? I can. When Jingshu answered promptly, without a moment's thought. Second brother, I am no delicate girl. Remember when I climbed jujube trees, raided bird nests, and fought with boys? When Mrs. Lee's son pulled my braids, I chased him down 3 whole streets. Do you recall that? When Yenha laughed and ruffled her hair. He had done this several times already that day, turning her hair into a messy bird's nest, yet he ruffled it further. All right, that spirit is what counts. I will make inquiries right away and try to set up a meeting tomorrow. Thank you, second brother. Something occurred to her. She pulled 2 milk candies from her pocket, candies when Yenha had given her that morning, and pushed them across the table. Have some candy, second brother. When Yenha glanced at the candies, then at her, smiling. Aren't those the candies I gave you? So what? Can't I give them back to you? That is called reciprocity. Besides, whether they are in your hands or mine, they still belong to our family. What harm is there in passing them around? When Yenha was amused by her clever reasoning, he unwrapped 1 candy and popped it into his mouth. Very well, you win the argument. Lin Qingjun watched the siblings banter, the corners of her mouth lifting softly, before returning her attention to her documents. Back in her bedroom upstairs, when Jingshu closed the door, she laid the 500 yuan notes beside her bankbook and counted loose change from her pockets. 420, 2 yuan in the bankbook, 500 yuan from her mother, plus pocket change brought her total to 930 odd yuan. She still needed less than 70 yuan to hit 1,000. When Jingshu stared at the pile of money, stunned. She had expected to spend days selling oil and sausages to scrape together the funds, yet her mother's 500 yuan gift covered most of the gap. The remaining 70 yuan could easily come from selling a few more sausages and a few jean of oil. She stood and walked to the window, pushing it open. Spotting her second brother preparing to leave, she hurried downstairs to catch him. Second brother, what sort of gifts does head nurse Wang like? I cannot show up empty-handed for a home visit. When Yenha thought it over, she has several children. The oldest attends junior high school, and the youngest is only 3 or 4. Bring some food items. Nothing overly expensive, sincerity matters most. When Jingshu's eyes lit up, food was something she possessed in abundance. From her system warehouse, she could take several pork sausages, wrap them in oil, proof paper, and tie them with twine. Practical and respectable. In this era, meat and oil made the finest gifts. I understand now. I'm heading to the hospital, Jingshu. I will let you know once I confirm the appointment with head nurse Wang. Travel safely, second brother. When Yenha reached the courtyard gate, then glanced back over his shoulder. Jingshu. Yes. Do not push yourself too hard. There is no rush to earn money. Your second brother is here for you. I know, second brother. When Yenha nodded and rode out through the gate. When Jingshu watched his bicycle vanish down the alley, then turned back inside. Lin Qingjun remained in the main hall reviewing documents, her brow slightly furrowed as she marked papers with her red pencil. She heard footsteps and did not lift her head. Your second brother has left? He has. He will arrange the meeting with head nurse Wang. When Jingshu sat across from her, resting her chin in her hands, looking at her mother. Mother, Lin Qingjun set down her red pencil and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Speak. I cannot visit head nurse Wang empty-handed, can I? Second brother said she has many children. I was thinking of bringing some food. 2 pork sausages plus a few other small items. Would that work? Lin Qingjun pondered and nodded. That is fine. Too little would look discourteous. Your second brother is right. Sincerity is what counts. Relieved, when Jingshu stood and headed toward the kitchen. I will prepare them right now. Wrapped in oil, proof paper and tied with twine, it will look very presentable. Wait a moment. Lin Qingjun called after her. How many pork sausages do you still have? When Jingshu halted mid-step, thinking rapidly. She could not admit she had 1,000 sausages in storage. That would shock her mother terribly. Nor could she claim too few, or she would struggle to explain future goods drawn from the system. About 10 left, she offered a reasonable number. My classmate says he can get more, but there will be a wait. Lin Qingjun nodded, harboring no suspicions. Use them sparingly. Send 3 over for your grandparents. When your father visited last time, grandmother kept asking about you, saying she had not seen her granddaughter in a long while. When Jingxu was taken aback, warmth spreading through her chest. In her memories, grandmother was a kind-hearted old lady who always slipped her hidden candies and whispered, "Don't tell your mother." Lin Qingjun knew perfectly well but never said a word. Very well. I will take 3 sausages for grandmother. Grandfather loves meat. What about the rest? Keep the rest for our own household. Lin Qingjun gave her a glance. Your father earns 97 yuan each month, yet we do not get to eat meat sausages every day. If your classmate can obtain more, buy them when you can. Spend money as needed. Come tell me if you run short. I understand, mother. She acknowledged and walked into the kitchen. The kitchen remained neat and tidy from lunch. She retrieved sausages from the cupboard, wrapped 2 carefully in oil-proof paper, tied the bundle with twine, and layered old newspaper over the wrapping to stop grease from seeping out. When Jingxu looked over her handiwork with satisfaction, she carried the bundle back to the main hall, only to find Lin Qingjun was no longer there. Documents were stacked neatly, and enamel mugs sat upside down on the tray. Footsteps sounded from upstairs. A short while later, Lin Qingjun descended wearing changed clothing. Mom, are you heading out? Asked Wen Jingxu. Yes, I need to drop a document off at the office. Lin Qingjun slipped on her leather shoes by the doorway, glancing back at the wrapped parcel on the table. Leave that right there. I'll look at it when I get back. Don't touch it, all right? I won't, I promise. When Jingxu nodded obediently, Lin Qingjun stepped outside. The courtyard gate clicked shut and her footsteps faded into the distance. When Jingxu returned to her room, sat down at the square table, and picked up Trade Economics. She flipped through a couple of pages, then set the book aside. Her mind was elsewhere. She still had 1,000 pork, sausage sticks stored in her system warehouse. She could not keep them hidden forever. She needed a way to bring them out little by little and give them a reasonable origin. She would give 2 sticks to head nurse Wang today, 3 to her grandparents, and keep a few at home. That left more than a dozen. She could tell her mother she had about 10 left, which would tide them over for a while. But what would she do a few days from now? She had to come up with a believable excuse for the supplies that kept appearing. The perfect cover would be a former classmate whose family worked at a food company. Digging through her memories, she found exactly such a person, Sun Huihui, her college classmate from the provincial capital. Sun Huihui's father was the deputy manager of the provincial food company, a man with enough authority to issue special supply permits. They had gotten along well back then. Though not close best friends, they still exchanged letters on holidays. When Jingxu resolved to write Sun Huihui a letter, she would say that after graduation, she hoped to build a career in the commercial sector and ask whether Sun Huihui could help her obtain some scarce goods. She did not actually plan to rely on Sun Huihui. She had the system, she needed no outside favors. But this connection would serve as a plausible cover story. From then on, whenever she pulled goods out of her system, she could claim Sun Huihui had gotten them for her. Brilliant. She thought she was starting to think like a proper transmigrator, planning ahead, laying groundwork, thinking several steps into the future. Why had she lacked such foresight in her past life? Perhaps she had never needed it. Back then, all she had done was study, sit for exams, earn her diploma, and then she had transmigrated before she could land a job. This life was different. She had a whole family to look after, parents to care for, 2 elder brothers to worry about. She decided to lie down for a while. Closing her eyes, she soon fell asleep. In her dream, she stood on a wide thoroughfare lined with countless shops. Crowds surged to and fro, bustling and lively. She carried a large shopping bag brimming with scarce goods, food, clothing, daily necessities. Behind her trailed a crowd, the director of the supply and marketing cooperative, the director of the commerce bureau, the manager of the food company, all calling after her. When Jingxu, wait, do you have any more of those pork sausages? We'll buy every last one. She ran forward, laughing heartily, her braids swinging behind her. She glanced over her shoulder. They were still chasing her, yet could never catch up. Her laughter grew even brighter. When Jingshu woke to the clanging of a bicycle bell, the rattling, jarring ring of a broken bell on her father's classic 28-inch heavy frame bicycle. When Zhongping's bell had been broken for nearly a month, Lin Qingjun had nagged him 8 times to replace it. Each time he said tomorrow, and tomorrow never came. When Jingshu sat up, half her braid undone, strands of hair sticking to her face, she looked drowsy, like a kitten just crawling out of its nest. Jingshu. When Zhongping's hearty voice rose from downstairs. I'm home. Where's your mother? Yawning, she stepped barefoot onto the floor, walked to the window and pushed it open, leaning her head out. In the courtyard, when Zhongping propped his bicycle beside the jujube tree, he still wore his dark, blue work uniform, cap perched squarely on his head. He tilted his face upward, the setting sun falling across his features. Mom went to the office to hand in a document. She'll be back soon. When Jingshu rested her chin on her arms atop the windowsill, her hair loose, half her face hidden behind stray strands, she looked utterly listless. When Zhongping frowned. Back to the office? I thought she was off this afternoon. She keeps saying she won't take on so much worry, yet she frets over everything more than anyone else. Takes after me, doesn't it? When Jingshu grinned. You. When Zhongping looked up at her and chuckled. Don't make me laugh. When your mother was your age, she was already a clerk at the Agriculture Bureau. Meanwhile, you're still waiting for work assignment. Dad. When Jingshu's cheeks puffed out, stung by his remark. Must you bring up what I'd rather forget? When Zhongping laughed all the louder. All right, I'll stop teasing you. He waved a hand. Come down and fix me something to eat. I'm starved. The cafeteria lunch today was cabbage and vermicelli with barely any oil. Left my stomach feeling empty. When Jingshu acknowledged him and pulled her head back inside. When she came downstairs, when Zhongping had changed into an old military-style jacket and sat on a stone bench in the courtyard sipping tea from an enamel mug. Steam curled upward. The aroma of tea mingled with the faint bitter scent of young jujube tree leaves, creating a soothing atmosphere. Why are you home so early today, Dad? When Jingshu walked toward the kitchen and tied on an apron. Nothing pressing at work, so I left early. When Zhongping took a sip of tea and spoke slowly. Your mother said she'd cook tonight. I came back to help so she wouldn't have to handle everything alone. When Jingshu peeked out from the kitchen doorway, smiling faintly. Help? What exactly would you do to help? Last time you cooked, you mistook vinegar for soy sauce. Before that, you burned a pot completely. Mom says whenever you step into the kitchen you only make more work for everyone. When Zhongping was caught off guard. His hand holding the enamel mug hung mid-air. He looked embarrassed yet refused to concede. Well, I could stand by and pass scallions or peel garlic. Fine, come on in then. When Jingshu waved him in. I happen to need someone to peel garlic. Delighted, when Zhongping carried his mug into the kitchen, set it on the stove, and rolled up his sleeves ready to work. When Jingshu handed him a bulb of garlic. She glanced over the kitchen supplies, planning supper. There were leftovers from noon. Fried pork sausage with eggs, though not enough for the whole family. She would make a little more of that. Eggs were running low, she hoped more would become available soon. One dish was not enough for 4 people, her mother and second brother would both be home for dinner. She needed 2 more dishes. She checked the basket beneath the cupboard. There was a small bunch of spinach still caked with mud, its leaves bright green, alongside several round dirt-covered potatoes. She could fry the spinach plain and make shredded potato stir-fry. Sweet potato congee would be the staple, thick and sticky, perfect paired with the pork sausages. She mapped out the menu in her mind. Congee needed slow simmering, it could not be rushed. She covered the pot and turned to prepare the other ingredients. Dad, have you peeled the garlic yet? She looked back. When Zhongping sat on a small wooden stool, concentrating hard. He peeled extremely slowly. Nearly 2 minutes had passed and he still had not finished 1 clove. Almost done. He did not lift his head, fumbling clumsily with the papery skin, garlic fragments wedged under his fingernails. He looked quite flustered. When Jingshu squatted down beside him and laughed. Your garlic peeling skills are nowhere near as good as your crime-catching skills. That's hardly the same thing. When Zhongping raised his head. I have experience catching criminals, none with peeling garlic. When Jingshu took the lumpy, half-peeled clove from him and finished it in seconds, leaving it smooth and intact. Watch this. Smack it gently and the skin splits open. She took another bulb and tapped it lightly with the back of her knife. Crack. The skin split. A quick twist of her fingers, and the clean white clove rolled free. Wen Zhongping watched intently and nodded. Smack it. Right, but don't hit too hard, or you smash the clove. Got it, I'll try. Wen Zhongping adjusted his strength and tapped the garlic with the heel of his palm. Crack. The skin split, uneven but far better than before. Look. I've got it. He quickly peeled the opened bulb. He worked faster now. A few cloves still bore minor nicks, yet he had improved noticeably. Watching her father squat earnestly on the kitchen floor peeling garlic, Wen Jingshu felt warmth mixed with amusement. This was her father, the imposing director when outside the home, yet at home he had to learn how to peel garlic from scratch. He took teasing from his wife and daughter without anger. She loved him for it. Put the peeled garlic in the bowl, Dad. I'll start cooking. She stood, washed her hands, and began slicing potatoes. Wen Zhongping watched and sighed. Your knife work is better than your mother's. Don't let her hear you say that. Wen Jingshu kept slicing without looking up. If she does, you'll end up sleeping on the sofa tonight. Wen Zhongping chuckled and returned to peeling garlic. She soaked the potato shreds in cold water to remove starch so they would turn crisp when fried. She washed the spinach, cut it into sections, and drained it. She set aside the leftover pork, sausage, and egg dish. The congee had simmered for 40 minutes. She cracked the lid. The broth was thick and golden yellow, looking appetizing. She added more firewood to thicken it further. Just then, the courtyard gate swung open. I'm home. Lin Qingjuan's voice drifted in. Before she even entered the house, she sniffed the air. What smells so good? Jingshu, have you been cooking? Mom's back. When Jingshu poked her head out of the kitchen, spatula in hand. The congee is nearly ready. The dishes will be done shortly. Lin Qingjun walked into the kitchen, glanced at the stove, then at Wen Zhongping squatting on the floor peeling garlic. She raised an eyebrow. What's gotten into you? Peeling garlic of all things? Wen Zhongping lifted his head, proud. I've learned how. Watch. He picked up a garlic bulb, tapped it smartly, peeled it, and held it up for her inspection. See? Impressive, isn't it? Lin Qingjuan's mouth twitched. She wanted to criticize him, but seeing his eager for praise expression, she held back. Not bad. You've improved. Delighted, Wen Zhongping immediately grabbed another bulb and kept peeling, full of energy. Lin Qingjun exchanged a knowing glance with Wen Jingshu, neither one exposing him. Mom, go rest. Dinner will be ready soon. Wen Jingshu guided her mother toward the main room. Lin Qingjun was genuinely worn out from running errands all afternoon. Her legs ached, so she sat down and poured herself a cup of water. Wen Jingshu returned to the kitchen and started stir-frying. She heated the wok, poured in a spoonful of corn oil, fried a few Sichuan peppercorns until fragrant, then fished them out. She tossed in garlic slices. A sizzle filled the kitchen as the sharp aroma spread. She drained the potato shreds and dumped them into the wok. Her spatula moved quickly, tossing the shreds so every strand glistened with oil. She added salt and a dash of vinegar, scattering chopped green onions right before serving. A plate of crisp hot and sour potato shreds, white with flecks of green onion, gave off a mouth-watering tang. Next she cooked the spinach. She did not wash the wok, using the leftover oil and adding a little more. She threw in the spinach. The greens wilted quickly upon hitting heat, shrinking from a large handful to a small serving. She added only salt, letting the spinach's natural sweetness shine through. Both dishes finished, and the congee was done. She ladled a big bowl and carried it to the square table in the main room. Wen Zhongping carefully brought out the two stir-fried dishes, holding one in each hand as if carrying live explosives, afraid of spilling anything. Wen Jingshu also brought out the leftover pork, sausage, and egg dish. 3 dishes plus congee filled the table. Simple home, cooked food, yet very inviting. Where's Yenha? Lin Qingjun glanced at the wall clock. It was nearly 6 o'clock. Right then, the courtyard gate creaked open. I'm back. When Yenha's voice echoed in. What kept you? Lin Qingjun filled a bowl of congee for him and handed it over. Something came up at the hospital. When Yenha took the bowl, sipped and winced at the heat, yet his eyes lit up. This congee is wonderful. Did you make it, Jingshu? Yes, sweet, potato congee. When Jingshu filled her own bowl and sat down. When Zhongping took a bite of potato shreds. Delicious. Crisper than your mother's cooking. Lin Qingjuan's chopsticks paused. She shot him a cold glance like winter wind. When Zhongping instantly realized his blunder. His chopsticks hung mid-air. He struggled to backtrack. I mean, this tastes great, but yours is different, equally good. Yours is just sometimes a little softer. Can't you keep your mouth shut while eating? Lin Qingjun said coolly, placing a helping of spinach onto his bowl. Just eat. Wen Zhongping bowed his head and ate quickly, no more careless comments. To ease the awkward silence, Wen Yanhe spoke up. Jingshu, head nurse Wang has agreed. We're visiting her place tomorrow evening at 7. When Jingshu set down her chopsticks. Where does she live? Commerce Bureau staff compound, the westernmost house in the 3rd row. I jotted the house number in my notebook. I'll show you later. When Yanhe bit into a piece of pork sausage. I mentioned your wish to transfer to the procurement section. She said Director Zhou is indeed looking for new staff, but there is stiff competition. Several well-connected candidates are vying for the post. Who are they? Lin Qingjun frowned, putting down her bowl. One is a young man already working within the Commerce Bureau, surnamed Liu. He has 2 years of experience there and wants to move into procurement. Another candidate is from the supply and marketing cooperative system, rumored to be a relative of a municipal-level leader. A relative of a municipal leader? Lin Qingjun's frown deepened. That complicates things for Jingshu. Don't worry, Mom. When Jingshu sipped her congee calmly. They have connections, but I have formal academic qualifications. The procurement section needs capable workers, not idle people who only rely on influence. Exactly. When Zhongping backed her up. Our Jingshu is a postgraduate. What's this Liu fellow's education? Secondary technical school graduate, I believe, when Yanhe replied. A secondary technical school graduate competing against our postgraduate daughter? When Zhongping raised his voice and sat straighter. There is a huge gap. Jingshu has nothing to fear. Keep your voice down. Lin Qingjun glared at him. This sort of appointment does not depend on grades alone. That man already knows the system, has connections and work experience. Jingshu would be a complete newcomer. When Jingshu knew her mother made valid points, yet she did not want her to worry. She smiled. Mom, trust me. I have a plan. Tomorrow evening we'll get past head nurse Wang first, then we'll handle whatever comes next. Lin Qingjun looked at her composed daughter, feeling both sympathy and pride. Even as a child, Jingshu never fought for attention, yet always thought things through. Should I come with you tomorrow? Lin Qingjun asked. No, second brother can go with me. When Jingshu glanced toward Wen Yanhe. Head nurse Wang is his colleague. His presence will be more appropriate. Lin Qingjun thought for a moment and nodded. Very well, the 2 of you go. Remember to be polite, neither overly stiff nor too casual. Greet uncle and aunt as soon as you enter. Don't cross your legs while seated, and don't slurp your tea. Mom. When Jingshu drew out the word, half exasperated, half playful. I'm not a small child. I know all of that. Lin Qingjun huffed. I just worry you might get nervous, stammer, and leave a bad impression. That won't happen. When Jingshu lifted her chin confidently. When have I ever embarrassed you? Seeing herself, assured manner, Lin Qingjun smiled. Fine, you won't embarrass us. When Yanhe interjected. Mom, don't fret. Head nurse Wang is easy going. When I told her about Jingshu, she said, a postgraduate. That's quite impressive. Tell your sister to drop by. Something along those lines. Just act naturally. When Jingshu nodded, feeling more reassured. She took a few sips of congee, then remembered something. Mom, you told me I should deliver pork sausages to Grandma tomorrow. Morning or afternoon? Go in the morning. Grandma has more energy then. Stay and chat for a while. Don't just drop off the goods and rush away. She misses you and talks about you often. All right, I'll head over first thing tomorrow. When Jingshu said. I'll ride the bicycle. I'll be back early, get ready in the afternoon, and then go to head nurse Wang's in the evening. You're riding a bike? When Zhongping looked up. Are you any good at cycling? Last time you rode, you nearly crashed into a tree. Dad. When Jingshu blushed slightly. That was ages ago. I'm much better now. Stop bringing up old things. When Yanhe turned to her. Shall I come with you to Grandma's house? No, no need. You have work tomorrow. When Jingshu waved her hand. I can go on my own. Grandma doesn't live far away. It's only a 20-minute bike ride. All right, take care on the road, when Yanhe reminded her. Lying on her bed, when Jingshu stared at the ceiling, waiting for 8 o'clock. She pulled an old mechanical watch out from under her pillow. When Jinping had given it to her for his birthday last year, a Shanghai watch. The dial was modest in size, fitting neatly around her slender wrist. She tucked the watch back beneath the pillow, rolled over, and pulled the quilt up to her chin. Her gaze fixed on the empty space in mid-air where something would soon appear. Ding! At exactly 7:59 and 59 seconds, the light screen popped open on schedule. Current time frame goods time remaining, 59 minutes 58 seconds. Traditional soybean flour dragon beard candy 300 grams per box times 1,000 units. System listed price, 8 yuan per box actual deduction, 0.08 yuan. Product description, hand-pulled strands coated in soybean flour, melting on the tongue, sweet yet not cloying. Vacuum, sealed individual small packets, 12 pieces per box. Limited stock, once sold out, no restocks. 1,000 boxes. 8 cents a box, amounting to 80 yuan in total. 80 yuan for 1,000 boxes of dragon beard candy. When Jingshu's mind raced, she had tasted dragon beard candy in her modern life. Sweet and melt in your mouth, similar to cotton candy yet far finer. Each sugar filament was as thin as a strand of hair, dusted with fragrant soybean flour. One bite and the sweetness spread across her palate, warm enough to reach her heart. In this era, dragon beard candy counted as an exquisite pastry. She had seen the snack counter at Qingping County Supply and Marketing Cooperative, walnut cakes, rice twists, egg cakes, honey-fried dough strips, and occasionally sakama. Yet those goods only appeared for major festivals. Dragon beard candy, with its intricate craftsmanship and premium ingredients, was rarely available even at the large department stores in the provincial capital, let alone Qingping County. One jean of dragon beard candy sold for 80 cents at the cooperative, and you still needed pastry coupons to buy it. Without coupons, no amount of money could get you any. But the system offered 1,000 boxes, 300 grams each, for 8 cents apiece, no coupons required. If she spent 80 yuan purchasing all these boxes, she would be even further away from her target of 1,000 yuan. What if she passed on the offer? The skill would refresh again at noon tomorrow. That opportunity would still be there. Yet these 1,000 boxes of candy would vanish once this window closed. The skill can wait, but these pastries won't come again once they're gone. She calculated rapidly in her head. Even if she, her family, and her acquaintances ate none of the candy, she could bring them to the procurement section. It was only natural for staff in the procurement section to have access to quality goods, wasn't it? Even if she failed to land a position there and ended up working behind the counter at the supply and marketing cooperative, she could offer a couple of boxes to leaders during festivals. Share some with colleagues and hand samples to valued regular customers. Favors could easily be built this way. Besides, 1,000 boxes for 80 yuan total, 8 cents each. She could sell off a portion and recoup her investment effortlessly. The more she thought it over, the clearer it became that this deal was too good to miss. She would take all 1,000 boxes. A line flashed across the light screen. Payment successful. Total deducted, 80 yuan. Remaining balance, 861.31 yuan. Goods stored in system warehouse, available for collection at any time. 1,000 boxes of dragon beard candy sat neatly stacked in the system warehouse, occupying a small section of storage space. When Jingshu looked over her inventory, 9 barrels of corn oil, 1985 pork sausages, 50 bags, 50 sets of instant noodles, 30 boxes of mixed nuts, 20 sets of loungewear, 1 soybean milk maker, and now another 1,000 boxes of dragon beard candy. 80 yuan well spent. She lay back down, her mind still buzzing. Tomorrow morning, when she visited Grandma, she would bring 3 pork sausages, 5 jean of corn oil, and 2 boxes of dragon beard candy. Grandma was 67, her teeth worn and weak, unable to chew hard food. Dragon beard candy melted instantly, perfect for the elderly. Grandma would surely say, "Child, you shouldn't keep spending money." Then she would secretly slip cash into Jingshu's hands. A faint smile tugged at Jingshu's lips at the thought. She would need to refuse tactfully tomorrow, not too bluntly, lest she hurt the elderly woman's feelings. She rolled over and hugged the quilt tightly against her chest. From the main hall downstairs came the murmur of conversation between Lin Qingjun and Wen Zhengping. She could not make out every word, but she recognized Lin Qingjun speaking, with Wen Zhengping offering occasional murmurs of agreement. Pricking up her ears, she caught fragments. Jingshu, procurement section, head nurse Wang. Her mother was discussing her future with her father. She buried her face in the quilt and chuckled softly. 1,000 yuan was nothing. After returning from Grandma's home tomorrow, She could share some pork sausages and oil with the neighbors to raise more funds. If all else failed, she could ask her second brother for help. Wenyenha would hand over the money without hesitation. But she did not want to rely on him. Her second brother earned 43 yuan a month, a decent salary for the times. Still, he needed money for meals, books, and gifts for patients. Some hospital inpatients came from impoverished families and could not afford nutritional supplements. So Wenyenha often bought those for them out of his own pocket. How could she bring herself to ask him for money? Besides, she was fully capable of gathering the funds herself. When Jingshu turned over, fluffed her pillow, and rested her head back against it, a smile lingered on her face as her eyes slowly closed. She was half asleep when a new idea surfaced. Tomorrow evening, when she visited head nurse Wang's home, alongside the pork sausages and corn oil, she would bring 2 boxes of dragon beard candy as well. Head nurse Wang had many children, all at the age who loved sweets. The candy melted easily, with no risk of choking or sticking to teeth, ideal for young children. If the nurse saw her children enjoying the treat, she would be delighted. That would seal the favor perfectly. Outside the window, crickets chirped steadily, a soft, continuous rhythm like spring tapping a gentle beat. Listening to the sound, she drifted quickly into deep sleep. The next morning, the aroma drifting from the kitchen roused Wen Jingshu. Downstairs, the clink of a spatula against an iron wok told her Lin Qingjun was making breakfast. She rolled over, rubbed her cheek against the pillow, then sat up slowly. She rubbed her eyes and yawned, reaching under the pillow for her watch. 6:40. She had woken earlier than usual. Her mother had risen even sooner. She pulled on her thin cotton, padded jacket. Mornings in April still carried a chill. She could not stay comfortable without it. Walking to the window, she pushed it open and leaned out to look down. In the courtyard, when Zhangping squatted beneath the jujube tree brushing his teeth, wearing an old military jacket. A toothbrush stuck out of his mouth, froth coating his lips. He held an enamel mug in his other hand, looking rather comical. Hearing the window creak, he lifted his head and spotted his daughter leaning out. He called indistinctly, "You're up." Toothpaste foam dripped down his chin. He wiped it roughly with the back of his hand, smearing white residue across his jaw. When Jingshu laughed, "Dad, can you stop talking while brushing your teeth? Foam's dripping all over your shirt." When Zhangping glanced down at the spots on his collar and waved dismissively. "It's fine. This shirt needs washing anyway. Mom only washed it last week," when Jingshu pointed out. When Zhangping grinned sheepishly and said nothing, returning to his brushing, she pulled her head back inside and hurried to wash and dress. In the kitchen, Lin Qingjun stood at the stove, busy with preparations. Several dishes sat on the counter, a plate of finely shredded pickled vegetables and another of tofu tossed with chopped green onions. Corn porridge bubbled thickly in the wok. When stirred, grains swirled through the golden broth. A smaller pot steamed buns beside it. When she lifted the lid, warm steam billowed out, carrying the sweet fragrance of baked wheat. "Morning, Mum." When Jingshu stepped into the kitchen and wrapped her arms around Lin Qingjun's waist, resting her chin on her shoulder and nuzzling playfully. Lin Qingjun twitched her neck at the tickle and shrugged her shoulders. "You're too old to act like this. Move aside, I'm cooking." Yet she did not push her daughter away. Instead, one hand reached up to pat Wen Jingshu's arm wrapped around her waist. "Let me help," when Jingshu released her and rolled up her sleeves. "No need, everything's nearly ready." Lin Qingjun lifted the porridge pot and gestured to the bowls beside the stove. "Just ladle out the porridge. I'll get the steamed buns." When Jingshu nodded and picked up the ladle, the porridge was rich and thick, filled with golden corn grits that smelled wonderful. In the main hall, Wenyenha was already seated at the table. He wore a collared shirt, his hair neatly combed. Behind his glasses, his eyes shone bright, looking alert. "Second brother, why are you up so early?" When Jingshu sat opposite him. "I have surgery scheduled. I need to arrive by 7:30. When Yenha sipped his porridge and glanced at her. His gaze lingered on her face. "You didn't sleep well last night. Dark circles under your eyes." "I slept perfectly fine," when Jingshu touched beneath her eyes. "I must have dreamed nonstop. All about dragon beard candy." "Dragon beard candy?" When Yenha raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, a classmate sent me several boxes from the provincial capital. They should arrive soon." She said the local food factory's new handmade treat, melt straight on your tongue, absolutely delicious. When Jingshu's eyes lit up as she spoke. I'll take 2 boxes to Grandma today. It's perfect for her poor teeth. When Yenha smiled. Your classmate certainly has connections, bringing you pork sausages and now dragon beard candy. Of course, when Jingshu said confidently. I only make friends with great foresight. Make sure you pay her properly for whatever she gives you, Lin Qingjun reminded her calmly, her meaning clear. I know, Mum. I've settled everything, haven't skimped a cent. When Zhongping walked into the room and sat down. He had changed into clean clothes, every button fastened neatly, a stark contrast to his disheveled appearance under the jujube tree minutes earlier. Dad, you look so dressed up today. I've a case to handle at the Municipal Public Security Bureau, when Zhongping picked up his chopsticks and ate a mouthful of pickled vegetables, crunching loudly. Give Grandma my regards on my behalf. He took another sip of porridge. He looked at his daughter earnestly. Tell her I'll visit next week, so she doesn't worry. I will, when Jingshu nodded. Lin Qingjun carried the steamed buns in and set the plate in the center of the table before taking her own seat. The 4 of them gathered around the square wooden table for breakfast. Lin Qingjun ate very little. She sipped her porridge slowly and barely touched the dishes, instead continuously serving food onto Jingshu's plate. Mum, stop piling food for me. Eat something yourself, when Jingshu stared at the mound growing in her bowl, helpless. I've already eaten, Lin Qingjun replied. You only drink a little porridge, that hardly counts as a meal. I'm not hungry this morning. Don't fuss over me. Lin Qingjun's tone left no room for argument, and she added another piece of tofu to Jingshu's bowl. Knowing her mother's stubbornness, Jingshu stopped arguing and ate quietly. When Zhongping spoke up. You're bringing dragon beard candy to your mother? That's a rare delicacy. I tried some once at a conference in the provincial capital, sweet and melt, in your mouth. Bring extra for Grandma. I've got plenty, don't worry, when Jingshu smiled. If you'd like some too, I'll set a box aside for you. No, leave it for Grandma, when Zhongping waved his hand. Yet his eyes brightened, his unspoken longing plain to see. When Jingshu noticed and suppressed a laugh, deciding silently. She would secretly leave a box on his pillow for him to discover later. Once breakfast ended, when Yenha left first. At the courtyard gate, he turned back to look at Jingshu. When you visit head nurse Wang this evening, I'll pick you up after work. Don't cycle there alone. The road is rough. All right, I'll wait for you, second brother, when Jingshu nodded obediently. When Zhongping stepped out of the house holding an envelope and handed it to her. Pass this to Grandma, say it's from me. When Jingshu squeezed the thin envelope, sensing cash inside. She did not open it, tucked it into her pocket, and nodded. Lin Qingjun was the last to leave. Before heading out, she tidied the kitchen spotlessly. Jingshu, I've laid your things on the table in the main hall. Check to make sure you haven't forgotten anything, she said as she slipped on her shoes by the doorway. Mum, you really are the best, when Jingshu said sincerely. Lin Qingjun rolled her eyes, yet warmth glinted in her gaze. Enough of your chatter. The courtyard gate closed, leaving the space quiet apart from sparrows chirping in the jujube tree. She loaded her belongings onto the bicycle and pushed it out of the gate. When Jingshu rode the family's old 28-inch heavy frame bicycle slowly north along the main street. Though well worn, the bike was carefully maintained, its chain oiled so it ran smoothly. The seat sat quite high. She was reasonably tall, yet to mount it, she had to rest one foot on the pedal, push off with the other foot on the ground, and swing herself aboard. Her posture lacked grace, but she had mastered the motion. She traveled roughly dozens of meters past the residential compound entrance and turned into a narrow alley, where she met someone coming the other way. Well, if it isn't Director Wen's youngest daughter. A shrill voice drifted from the roadside, sharp and sour, like over-seasoned pickled vegetables that set teeth on edge. A woman in her 40s stood there, wearing a black cotton blouse. Her hair was pulled back tightly and secured with black hair clips, not a stray strand loose, looking uncomfortably taut. She carried a vegetable basket filled with green onions, ginger, and a handful of wilted chives, clearly not bought fresh that morning. Zhao Xiulan, Aunt Zhao. Her husband was a section chief at the town government, a minor official, yet in her eyes, his rank rivaled that of a national leader. She walked with her chin tilted skyward. She had a nasty habit, she could not bear seeing others prosper. If someone's child entered university, she would claim, "What good is university? They'll still end up sent down to the countryside." If someone secured a good job, she would sneer, "Only possible through connections, nothing impressive." If someone bought a new bicycle, she would mutter, showing off. "Who knows where they got the money?" When Jingxu remembered that when she passed the university entrance exam, Zhao Xiaolan had gossiped in the alley, "What's the point of girls going to university? They'll just marry sooner or later. A waste of money." When Jingxu faced Zhao Xiaolan and climbed calmly off the bicycle, "Good morning, Aunt Zhao," she greeted her flatly. Zhao Xiaolan stepped closer, looking Wen Jingxu up and down. Her gaze lingered on the cloth bag hanging from the handlebars before settling on Wen Jingxu's face. "Jingxu, I heard you've graduated." Zhao Xiaolan spoke loud enough for the elderly men playing chess nearby to hear. "Have you received your work assignment yet?" "Not yet, waiting for notice." "Oh dear, that's troublesome." Zhao Xiaolan sighed dramatically, performing for her audience. "I've heard university graduates are struggling for placements this year. Many are being sent down to the countryside. After studying all those years, what will you do if you end up posted out in the rural areas?" She paused, then added pointedly, "But don't despair. Your father's the public security director. He'll surely find a way for you, won't he?" Her words sounded like comfort, yet the sour resentment was palpable. Zhao Xiaolan shook her head, speaking with feigned worldly wisdom. "My third son just graduated high school, brilliant student, yet he's bound for the countryside too. You have director when backing you, so things will be different for you." The elderly chess players lifted their heads to watch them, then lowered their gazes back to the board, yet all pricked up their ears. The clink of chess pieces grew softer. When Jingxu met Zhao Xiaolan's eyes, her smile unchanged. She had met plenty of people like her in her professional life in her previous lifetime. The more you argued, the more they reveled in it. The angrier you grew, the happier they became. The best strategy was to avoid taking the bait without appearing weak. "You're right, Aunt Zhao. Connections certainly make things easier." When Jingxu nodded, sounding so sincere that Zhao Xiaolan was momentarily stunned. "Don't worry about me, though. Luck always follows me. I caught the university expansion wave when I sat for the entrance exam, and Professor Chen took me on as a postgraduate student right when I hoped for it. Who knows, I might catch another favorable policy as I wait for my assignment now." She smiled, eyes crinkling gently. "Good fortune is hard to hold back, isn't it, Aunt Zhao?" Zhao Xiaolan opened her mouth, unable to find a reply. When Jingxu continued, her tone still relaxed. "Besides, working in the countryside isn't all bad. Fresh air, homegrown vegetables, honest folk. I studied trade economics. Supply and marketing cooperatives in rural areas also need staff. If your third son gets sent down to the countryside, don't be too upset for him. Rural life has its merits. Young people learn valuable lessons from hardship." She added softly, "My two elder brothers built themselves up through hardship. Eldest brother joined the army at 16 and is now a battalion commander. Second brother endured tough years studying and works as an attending physician now. Hardship shapes character, Aunt Zhao. It all depends on the person." Zhao Xiaolan's face flushed pale then red. She gripped her vegetable basket tightly, veins bulging on her knuckles. She had wanted to retort, "It's easy for you to talk with your father's position," but when Jingxu never gave her the chance to interject, steering the conversation toward perseverance instead. If she insisted on pushing her original line, she would implicitly admit her own son lacked opportunities rather than talent. She could not bring herself to say such words. The chess players had forgotten their game entirely, all watching the exchange. One white, bearded elder let out a quiet chuckle, clear enough for everyone on the quiet lane to hear. Zhao Xiaolan's face turned even paler. When Jingxu watched the shift in her expression, secretly amused. She had no wish to turn the exchange ugly. Though Zhao Xiaolan was a gossip, there was no need to fall out completely. They were neighbors who crossed paths constantly. Her sharp retort today was enough. Anything further would go too far. "Aunt Zhao, carry on with your work. I'm off now." She nodded with a smile and swung her leg back over the bicycle. "Grandma's waiting for me. If I'm late, she'll start nagging." "Ah, right, run along." Zhao Xiaolan forced a grin, a smile worse than weeping, the corners of her mouth twitching repeatedly. When Jingxu pushed down on the pedal, and the bicycle rolled steadily forward. After riding more than 10 meters, she glanced back. Zhao Xiaolan still stood rooted to the spot, vegetable basket in hand, looking like a utility pole tilted by the wind. Her spirits lifted. It was not because she had gotten the better of Zhao Xiaolan, but because she realized she was growing more adept at handling such situations. In her past life, confronted with this kind of trouble, she would either swallow her anger and seethe alone at home, or fly into a rage and make matters irreconcilable. This life was different. She knew how to stand her ground politely, speak up for herself without suffering losses, yet spare the other party excessive humiliation. Such a sense of proportion could not be learned from books. It came only through experience. Professor Chen was right, she muttered, her words carried away by the wind. Academic excellence means far less than living well. Her maternal grandparents lived on the Old Street in the northern part of the county. Though called the Old Street, the name only referred to the earlier construction date. The houses were older than those in the staff compound, yet the courtyards were far more spacious. Her grandfather, Wen Dejing, was 69 years old. Before retirement, he had served as principal of the County No. 1 middle school. He had taught Chinese all his life and possessed masterful calligraphy. Every Lunar New Year, neighbors would come to him for spring festival couplets, and he never turned anyone away. He would spread out red paper, grind ink, and wield his brush to write several pairs in bold, fluid script. After finishing, he would brew tea and chat with them. Restless in retirement, he had dug a small vegetable plot in the courtyard, growing chives, green onions, and spinach, claiming it kept his joints active. Grandma would tease him that he was simply bored out of his mind. Still, every time Grandpa brought home fresh vegetables from the plot, she would take them, sort them carefully, stir, fry some, and prepare cold dishes with others. Grandma was Zhou Guilin, 67. Before retiring, she had taught mathematics at County No. 1 middle school, working alongside her grandfather. She had spent decades teaching, and her students were spread all across the county. Wherever she went, people would greet her as Teacher Zhou. Blunt and quick-spoken, she had a kind heart and could not bear to see others suffer. Whenever a neighbor ran into hardship, she would quietly offer help and ask them not to mention it to anyone. When Jingshu still remembered that when Grandma visited their home when she was young, she always brought treats, sometimes a bag of rice crackers, sometimes a few egg cakes, sometimes a sack of plump red jujubes. She would bend down, eyes crinkling into slits as she whispered, "Don't let your mother see. She says too much sugar rots your teeth." Young Wen Jingshu would obediently nod, yet Lin Qingjun always knew. Grandma's little schemes were plain to see on her face. Grandpa and Grandma had 3 sons. Wen Zhongping was the youngest. The eldest son, Wen Zhongshan, 49, served as deputy director of the canning factory. His personality was nothing like Wen Zhongping's. Wen Zhongping cut an imposing figure outside, but yielded to his wife at home. Eldest uncle smiled constantly both in public and private, yet everyone treated him with deference. It was the sort of deference that made you loath to misbehave in his presence. He spoke slowly and calmly, never losing his temper, yet every word hit home, leaving you thinking, "Uncle is right. I really ought to change." Aunt Lu Guifang, 48, headed the Neighborhood Women's Federation. Warm as a stove, she radiated energy wherever she went. She spoke loudly and laughed even louder, her chuckle audible 3 streets away. She loved organizing affairs, helping arrange wedding banquets, mediating neighborhood quarrels, and rushing to assist anyone in trouble. The eldest couple had 2 sons, Wen Jingshu's elder cousins. The eldest cousin, Wen Jiangwo, 29, worked in the county government office as a skilled writer who drafted official documents. Most speeches for county conferences were penned by him. Meticulous to the point of obsessing over punctuation, colleagues dubbed him Perfectionist 1. His wife, Sun Xiaomei, 1 year younger, worked as an accountant at the County Finance Bureau. Frugal and prudent, she managed all household matters, leaving Wen Jiangwo with little say at home. In this way, he resembled Wen Zhongping. It seemed the Wen men all shared a tendency to defer to their wives. They had a 6-year-old son nicknamed Huzi. He had a round face, large eyes, long eyelashes like folding fans, and dimples when he smiled. Though he looked sweet, he was terribly mischievous. Last month, he chased a neighbor's chickens all over their yard. The month before, he had painted eldest uncle's leather shoes bright red. Proud of his handiwork, he planted his hands on his hips and grinned at the doorway. Aunt Lu chased him for 3 streets yet failed to catch him. The second son of the eldest couple, cousin Wen Jianbang, 27, worked at the County Cultural Center. His wife Chen Shaoan was an announcer at the county broadcasting station. They had a 1-year-old son nicknamed Nyangao, so named because he was pale and plump at birth, just like freshly steamed rice cake. Second uncle Wen Zhongyi, 47, served as deputy director of the County Industry and Transportation Bureau. The bureau oversaw local industry, transportation, and logistics, keeping him endlessly busy, yet he enjoyed his work. He had a gift for talking. He could speak at meetings, during casual chats, over meals, and even strike up conversations while running errands. As eldest uncle put it, give Zhangyi a topic, and he can ramble on for 3 days without repeating himself. Aunt Wang Rulin, 46, taught mathematics at No. 2 County Primary School. She and second uncle were complete opposites. Where he was talkative and lively, she was quiet. Where he was careless, she observed every small detail. The couple had lived together for nearly 30 years with almost no serious arguments. It was not that they never quarreled, but whenever second uncle was about to start, Aunt Wang would fix him with a glance, and he would fall silent. This dynamic echoed the relationship between Wen Zhongping and Lin Qingjun. Wen Jingshu often wondered if all Wen men shared this fate, powerful outside the home, yet giving way to their wives within it. Second uncle also had 2 sons. Eldest among them, cousin Wen Jianjun, 27, drove heavy trucks for the county transport team. Standing over 1.8 meters tall, he was built like an ox, his arms thicker than her thighs. Constantly on the road, he was deeply tanned, and his wide smile revealed a set of white teeth, appearing honest and reliable. His wife Li Xiulian, 1 year younger, worked as a nurse at the township health clinic. Gentle as still water, she spoke softly and moved almost silently. When Jingshu recalled spending a few days at their home one summer, mosquito bites kept her awake at night. Li Xiulian rose in the dark to light mosquito coils and fanned her with a palm leaf fan. She kept fanning until when Jingshu drifted off before returning to her own bed. The next morning, when Jingshu asked her how late she had slept, Li Xiulian smiled and said, "Not long after you fell asleep." Only later did she learn Li Xiulian had fanned her for more than an hour, her arm aching from the effort. They had a 3-year-old son named Daodu, round, fair, and plump. Daodu was exceptionally well behaved, never crying or fussing, and happy to be held by anyone. Once he grew familiar with you, he would cling close, asking to be carried, begging for stories, and pressing candies into your palm, saying, "Auntie, eat." The younger cousin, Wen Jianmin, 26, worked as a technician at the county machinery factory. Bright from childhood, he excelled in mathematics and science. After gaining admission to the Provincial Institute of Technology, he was assigned to the machinery factory and had become a core technical member. He was still unmarried, much to Aunt Lu's anxiety, who constantly asked acquaintances to introduce young women to him. Her exact words were, "Our Jianmin is 26. He has good looks and a stable job. Why can't he find a partner? Could his standards be too high? This boy is a constant worry." Every time he heard this, Jianmin would lower his head, the tips of his ears turning red, like a schoolboy reprimanded by his teacher. Lost in these thoughts as she cycled, when Jingshu soon reached the old street. As she neared the street entrance, she spotted an elderly woman sitting on a stone block by the road. She knew it was Grandma waiting for her. Grandma always sat there whenever she came to visit. Whether she notified Grandma in advance or arrived at an unexpected hour, Grandma would always be waiting. Once she dropped by without warning, and Grandma was still seated in that spot. She asked Grandma, "How did you know I would come today?" Grandma replied, "I didn't know. But I sit here every day. Whenever you come, I'll be the first to see you." Thinking of this, when Jingshu's throat tightened, her eyes stinging with tears, she rode up beside the stone block, propped one foot on the ground, and called out, "Grandma." Grandma squinted at her for 2 seconds, then broke into a smile. She wore a navy blue traditional Chinese blouse with frog buttons. Her hair was gray yet neatly combed. Wrinkles lined her face, but her eyes shone brightly, lighting up the instant she caught sight of Wen Jingshu. "Oh, my dear granddaughter." Grandma hurried forward, grasping Wen Jingshu's hands and looking her up and down, murmuring, "You've lost weight. Has your mother not been cooking proper meals for you? Your face looks thinner." Wen Jingshu laughed. "Grandma, I haven't lost weight. I've actually put on 2 jeans. Nonsense. My eyes are more accurate than a scale." Grandma kept hold of her hand and brushed her palm across Wen Jingshu's cheek. "Look how little flesh you have on your face. Your mother is always busy with work and never remembers to simmer nourishing soup for you. Just look at your complexion, pale as paper." Wen Jingshu did not know whether to laugh or sigh. Her fair skin was natural, yet she dared not contradict Grandma. If she did, Grandma would insist, "You had rosy cheeks when you were little." She stood patiently, letting Grandma fuss over her until she pulled her hands free and handed over her bag. Grandma, I brought you some things. Sausages and 2 boxes of crisp pastry, which melts in your mouth. It's perfect since your teeth aren't as strong as they used to be. Grandma took the parcel, glancing down at it. You shouldn't have brought anything. You waste money coming here laden with gifts. Even so, the corners of her mouth lifted uncontrollably. When Jingshu understood Grandma cared not for the goods themselves, but for the thought behind them. She reached into her canvas bag and pulled out a craft paper envelope. Grandma, Father asked me to pass this to you. Grandma glanced at the envelope and refused to take it, her brows drawing together. More money? Your father scrimps on himself yet sends money home so readily. I don't want it, take it back. She pushed the envelope back toward Wen Jingshu. Wen Jingshu had anticipated this refusal. She tried to pull her hand away, but Grandma held it fast. Grandma, don't put me in a difficult spot. She spoke softly, a hint of pleading in her tone. Father said this money must reach you. If I return it, he'll scold me. Could you bear to see me get told off? Grandma's grip slackened. She shot her a mock glare. Your father wouldn't dare scold you. If he does, come straight to me, and I'll give him a talking, too. Despite her words, her hold loosened. When Jingshu seized the chance to press the envelope into Grandma's palm, closing her fingers firmly around it. Please keep it. I'll feel uneasy otherwise. You know Father's temperament. Once he decides to send money, he won't let it rest. He'll nag me for a whole month if you send it back. Could you stand listening to me suffer his constant reminders? Grandma could not resist her stream of gentle pleading. She struggled to keep a stern expression but failed, smile lines spreading around her eyes. You child, your tongue is coated in honey. She tucked the envelope into her pocket and tapped Wen Jingshu lightly on the forehead. Just like your mother, so good with words. Wen Jingshu chuckled and linked her arm through Grandma's, leaning her head against her shoulder. Of course. I take after Mother. Where's Grandpa? She glanced around. He's working in the backyard vegetable plot. He got up early this morning, saying he needs to turn over the soil to plant radishes. Grandma waved a hand, her tone tinged with exasperation, yet full of fondness. Leave him be. He'll be back soon. Come sit first. I'll get you water, freshly boiled this morning. Grandma led Wen Jingshu into the main room. Hanging on the wall was a calligraphy scroll written by Grandpa, bearing the 4 characters, Tranquility fosters far-sightedness. Executed in running script with powerful strokes, it bore witness to decades of practice. Drink up, it's cold enough not to burn you. Grandma pressed the mug into her hand and sat beside her, still clinging to Wen Jingshu's hand. Your mother called to say you've graduated. My wonderful granddaughter, you've brought great honor to our family. When your grandfather heard the news, he was too excited to sleep all night, tossing and turning and repeating, Jingshu is promising, more accomplished than I am. When Jingshu grew shy at the praise and sipped her water. Grandma, don't say that. Grandpa was a school principal. I've barely begun my journey. Your grandfather's principal days were ages ago. Grandma argued confidently. Watching Grandma's joy, Wen Jingshu's heart warmed. Father's at the Municipal Public Security Bureau handling a case and cannot get away. Mother also has work duties. Second brother has surgery at the hospital today, so he cannot come either. Wen Jingshu explained. I'm the only one who could make it. It's fine, as long as you're here. Grandma patted her hand. Your grandfather will be happier seeing you than anyone else. You have no idea how often he talks about you. He often recalls you climbing onto his lap as a little girl. Though he won't admit it, he misses you terribly now that you've grown up. Memories surfaced. She had visited her grandparents' home frequently as a child. In summer, Grandpa would spread a rush mat beneath the persimmon tree in the courtyard. She would lie on it reading storybooks while Grandpa sat beside her, fanning her and recounting tales from Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. When he told the story of Guan Yu crossing 5 passes and slaying 6 generals, she would stare wide-eyed and ask, Grandpa, is Guan Yu incredibly powerful? Grandpa would nod with a smile. Very powerful, stronger than your father. Can father beat Guan Yu? Grandpa thought carefully and replied earnestly, he cannot defeat him in battle, but your father could invite Guan Yu for a meal and ask him to help catch criminals. As a small child, she had found this answer perfectly reasonable. Looking back now, she realized Grandpa had only been teasing her. Grandma, I'm going to see Grandpa in the backyard. When Jingshu stood up. Go on, call him back. He shouldn't squat in the garden for so long. He strains his waist yet refuses to take care. Grandma waved, then added another thought. Cut a handful of chives while you're there. I'll make dumplings for you at noon. When Jingshu agreed, walked through the main room, and headed out the back door toward the backyard. As one foot crossed the rear threshold, a chime echoed inside her mind. Ding, flash sales system. Current time window, 8 to 9 a.m. time remaining, 27 minutes and 13 seconds. When Jingshu quickly glanced toward the backyard, Grandpa squatted in the vegetable plot, his back to her, hoeing soil and humming an indistinct tune. She breathed a quiet sigh of relief, pressing herself against the doorframe, half hidden, only her head visible as she stared at the translucent system panel. Goods available for this window, time remaining, 27 minutes and 11 seconds. 1. High power self defense device times 10. System listed price, 60 yuan actual deduction, 0.6 yuan. Item description, portable electric self defense tool with a built-in 20,000 mAh battery, output voltage 80 million volts low, current design, non-lethal. 1. Touch activation for electric shock function. Lipstick, sized, fitted with a safety cap to prevent accidental discharge. Note, upon retrieval, its appearance will automatically adapt to the era, taking the shape of an ordinary flashlight with all functions unchanged. 3. Egg noodles 500 grams per bundle times 1000. System listed price, 2 yuan actual deduction, 0.02 yuan. Item description, made from high gluten wheat flour with 8% egg content. Springy texture, resistant to boiling and breaking. Each bundle individually packaged, 12-month shelf life. She looked up at the panel again to confirm she had read correctly. 80 million volts. The number circled in her mind, and she quietly drew in a breath. The description specified low current, non-lethal. That meant the voltage was immense, yet the current weak enough to cause extreme pain without taking a life. Still, the agony of an 80 million volt shock when Jingshu pictured it and shuddered. Even so, self-defense tools were essential in this era. The year was 1970. Public security was far better than in the old days, yet a young woman traveling alone faced risks. Once she began work in the procurement section, she would take trains, stay in guest houses, and encounter all sorts of situations out on the road. Every time her mother Lin Qingjun heard news of young women encountering trouble away from home, she would nag for days on end. Young girls must stay vigilant when traveling. Avoid walking after dark, do not speak to strangers, and never. When Jingshu always nodded, yet thought to herself, Mother, I know all of that. But what if a bad person runs faster than me? Now she had this flashlight with an 80 million volt charge. It could scare off any thug, and even bears would yelp from the shock. When Jingshu nodded in satisfaction and turned her gaze to the second item, egg noodles, 500 grams per roll. The system listed the price at 2 yuan, but only deducted 0.02 yuan in actual payment. Just 2 cents for a roll of noodles. When Jingshu quickly did the math in her head, noodles at the supply and marketing cooperative cost roughly 30 cents a jean, and grain tickets were required. Here in the system, a jean was only 2 cents, no tickets needed, less than 1/10 of the cooperative's price. 1,000 rolls at 2 cents each came out to a total of 20 yuan. Noodles were easy to store and didn't take up much space. When hunger struck, all you had to do was boil them. Add an egg and some greens, and you had a warm bowl of noodle soup. On cold winter days, a bowl of hot soup could warm you from head to toe. 10 anti-wolf devices, all purchased, 6 yuan. 1,000 rolls of egg noodles, all purchased, 20 yuan. Total, 26 yuan. When Jingshu checked her system balance, 861.31 yuan. Subtract 26, leaving 835.31 yuan. She couldn't help laughing softly. Her voice was quiet, yet it echoed clearly in the quiet backyard. Who's there? Grandfather's voice came from the vegetable plot, tinged with wariness, mostly out of curiosity. When Jingshu poked half her body out from behind the door frame and grinned. Grandpa, it's me. Jingshu's here. He set down his hoe, brushed soil off his hands, and stood up. His knees creaked sharply. He frowned briefly, then smoothed his expression and walked over with a smile. When did you arrive? Just now. Grandpa, don't keep working. Grandma told you to head back and rest. You shouldn't squat in the fields with your bad lower back. Your grandmother worries over every little thing. Wen Dezheng waved his hand, yet he obediently dusted dirt off his trousers, leaned the hoe against the wall, and walked back with Wen Jingshu. Grandpa, the chives you planted are thriving. Wen Jingshu pointed at the lush green patch of chives in the plot. Grandma asked me to cut a bundle to make dumplings. Cut plenty. Wen Dezheng waved his hand generously. If you can't finish them, take the leftovers home for your mother to try. These are the first crop of chives, tender and perfect for dumplings. Wen Jingshu squatted down to cut the chives. As her grandfather watched, he suddenly spoke. Jingshu, have you finished your undergraduate studies? I've got my graduation certificate. She kept cutting as she replied. Now I'm waiting for work assignment. Any news about where you'll be posted? Grandfather asked in a steady tone, and Wen Jingshu could hear how concerned he was. I hope to get into the purchasing section at the supply and marketing cooperative. Mom and Dad are making inquiries for me. Mom knows someone at the Bureau of Commerce. Second brother also helped me arrange a meeting tonight with the wife of one of his colleagues, who's a deputy director at the Bureau of Commerce. Grandfather nodded. The purchasing section is a good post. It will let you gain experience. You studied trade economics, so the work matches your major. He paused and added, but you're a young woman, so you must stay safe when out and about. The purchasing section requires frequent business trips to unfamiliar places far from home. Always stay alert. I understand, Grandpa. Wen Jingshu nodded obediently. Grandfather looked at her and suddenly smiled. You're just like your grandmother when she was young. You look gentle and quiet, but you know your own mind. Back then, I'd say go east, and she'd head west. I'd tell her to chase off a dog, and she'd go after chickens instead. I was saying what about me? Grandmother's voice rang out from the hall doorway, carrying a clear warning. Grandfather immediately fell silent. He cleared his throat and said solemnly, I was saying how much Jingshu takes after you, and that it's a fine thing. When Jingshu shook with suppressed laughter, Grandmother huffed, but the corners of her mouth were turned up. She walked over and took the chives from Wen Jingshu's hands, inspecting them with satisfaction. Good, they're tender. Go sit down. I'll make dumplings. Let me help you, Grandma. Wen Jingshu followed her. No need. Go chat with your grandfather. Grandmother gently pushed her away. He gets bored all alone out here, talking to his plants every day. If he doesn't speak to people soon, he'll turn into one himself. Grandfather listened, his expression complicated. He wanted to argue but dared not. All he could manage was, what's wrong with talking to plants? Plants have spirits. Speak kindly to them and they'll grow well. Fine, fine, go talk to your plants. I want to chat with my granddaughter. Grandmother waved him off and pulled Wen Jingshu to her side. Let's ignore him. Grandfather opened his mouth, then closed it. He turned to make tea in the main room. His back looked a little dejected, yet Wen Jingshu spotted the upward tilt of his lips. Wen Jingshu helped Grandmother sort the chives, knead dough, and prepare filling in the kitchen. Grandmother was excellent at making dumpling wrappers. She rolled them quickly into perfect circles, spinning the dough while rolling. Within a few strokes, another wrapper was done, stacked on the board like rows of pale little moons. Grandma, your skill is good enough to open a dumpling restaurant, Wen Jingshu praised sincerely. Open a restaurant? I spent my whole life as a teacher. Why would I run a dumpling shop? Grandmother pretended to grumble, rolling the wrappers even faster. Your eldest aunt also makes dumplings, but her filling is always far too salty. Eldest uncle never dares complain, just keeps saying delicious, delicious. I feel sorry for him watching. Wen Jingshu laughed. Eldest uncle loves eldest aunt. Loving her doesn't make the salt go away. Grandmother spoke plainly. Your eldest aunt is a fine person in every other way, but she can't cook. And your eldest uncle? 20 years of overly salty dumplings, and he's never uttered a word of complaint. What about Grandpa? Has he ever said your cooking isn't good? Wen Jingshu asked curiously. Grandmother's rolling motion halted for a moment before she huffed. Would he dare? Wen Jingshu laughed until she leaned forward and back. They were halfway through making dumplings when Grandmother suddenly stopped. She wiped flour off her apron and walked into the inner room. Wen Jingshu thought she was going to the restroom and carried on folding dumplings. Her technique was nowhere near Grandmother's. The dumplings she made lopsided and wobbly, like unsteady soldiers who'd had too much to drink. Next to Grandmother's neat, plump ranks, they looked utterly shoddy. She glanced at her lopsided creations and tucked them behind Grandmother's perfect dumplings, hoping they would go unnoticed. Shortly after, Grandmother returned from the inner room clutching something. She walked straight over and stuffed it into Wen Jingshu's pocket. Take this. When Jingshu looked down and saw money. A stack of 10 yuan Great Unity banknotes, neatly folded. Grandma, what are you doing? When Jingshu quickly pressed her pocket and stepped back. I can't take this. Keep it for yourself. When I tell you to take it, you take it. Grandmother had surprisingly strong hands. She grabbed Wen Jingshu's arm and pushed the money deeper into her pocket. Your grandfather and I have a combined pension of more than 100 yuan each month. We can't spend it all. You just graduated and don't have much spare cash, so take it. When Jingshu was tugged sideways, nearly crashing into the stove. She steadied herself against the counter, helpless and amused. Grandma, I really have money. Mom just gave me 500 and I still have hundreds more in my passbook. I have enough. That money is from your mother. This is from me. Grandmother spoke firmly. What mom gives you is mom's. What grandma gives you is grandma's. They aren't the same. When Jingshu was confused by this unique logic, but the money was already safely tucked inside her pocket. She pulled it out to count 20 notes, 200 yuan in total. Grandma, this is far too much. Holding the stack, her palms felt warm. Too much? Your grandfather and I receive over 100 yuan in pensions every month, grandmother retorted, tying her apron again and picking up the rolling pin. When Jingshu could find no reply, she turned toward the main room, where grandfather was drinking tea, and shot him a pleading look. Grandfather held his enamel mug, sipped his tea slowly, glanced their way, then calmly looked away, pretending to admire the calligraphy scroll, "Peace and serenity bring far-reaching vision," hanging on the wall. His expression clearly said, "Don't look at me. I can't persuade your grandmother." Helpless, when Jingshu folded the money and put it back into her pocket, then resumed folding dumplings. That's better. Grandmother nodded contentedly, the rolling pin thudding steadily against the wooden board. I've lived more than 60 years. I might not know everything, but I can judge people well. You're sensible and won't waste money. Take it and don't stand on ceremony with me. Grandma, she sniffled, her voice soft. Once I start earning wages, I'll buy you and Grandpa a big color television, a refrigerator, and... No need to buy us anything. Just take good care of yourself. Grandmother cut her off. Her rolling never slowed, yet her tone softened noticeably. If you live comfortably, Grandma will be happy. If you struggle, no amount of gold and silver could cheer me up. When Jingshu fell silent, she lowered her head and blinked hard to hold back the mist gathering in her eyes. They filled an entire bamboo tray with dumplings, pale white and plump, like a flock of white huddling to keep warm. Grandma, do you have letter paper and stamps? When Jingshu wiped her hands. I want to write to eldest brother. Yes, yes. Your grandfather keeps letter paper in his study. I'll fetch them. Grandmother turned toward the study, then glanced back halfway. Do you need stamps? We have some left over from letters your grandfather wrote to old classmates. Yes, please get me one stamp too. Grandmother soon returned with light blue letter paper and several stamps. When Jingshu carried them to the 8-sided table in the main room, sat down and picked up the pen on the table. She thought for a moment and began writing. Eldest brother, hope this letter finds you well. We received your last letter. Mom read it aloud to us. Her eyes turned red, yet she kept saying, this boy always wastes money. Eldest brother, spring arrives late in the northeast. Has the ice thawed where you are? Wrap up warmly, don't skimp on layers for appearances. We saw the photos you sent home, you've tanned again. Are you out on field drills once more? You're already a battalion commander. Can't you let your subordinates take on some of the dangerous work instead of charging forward every time? Reading that line, she thought it sounded just like Lin Qingjun. Mother and daughter truly thought alike. I have received my undergraduate graduation certificate and am waiting for work assignment. I hope to secure a position in the purchasing section of the supply and marketing cooperative. Mom, Dad, and second brother are helping me make inquiries. Don't worry, I am confident. A classmate shared several boxes of dragon beard pastry and nuts with me. I'm sending them along with this letter for you to enjoy. She paused and added another line. Grandma gave me 200 yuan today. I tried to refuse, but she wouldn't let me. She said money from Grandma is different from other money. Eldest brother, please look after yourself over there. Don't be too thrifty. Spend your allowance as needed. Stop sending so much money home, we have enough here. If you meet a nice young woman you like, take the chance. Don't hesitate. Our family doesn't set strict conditions, we only care that she is a good person. Looking forward to your reply. Your younger sister, Jingshu April X, 1970. She lifted the letter, read it through once, satisfied. She folded it into thirds and slipped it into an envelope. She wrote eldest brother's name and address on the front. She knew the address by heart. It had etched itself into her mind from all his letters. Finished writing? Grandmother walked over with a cup of water and set it beside her. What did you write about? I told him to take care of himself, not to save every penny, and to find a partner if he meets someone suitable. Grandmother smiled, her eyes crinkling. You can't rush your eldest brother about marriage. He's just like your father when he was younger. Work comes first, everything else second. That's true. When Jingshu took a sip of water. If father hadn't met mother, he would probably still be single now. Grandmother laughed harder, then sighed softly. Your eldest brother is all alone in the Northeast, with no one to care for him. Your grandfather and I worry constantly. Keep reminding him in your letters to pay more attention to this matter. He's 25 already. He's not young. I will, Grandma. When Jingshu patted the envelope. Don't worry. Eldest brother knows what he's doing. He won't end up unmarried. Grandmother nodded and glanced at the wall clock. It was nearly 11 o'clock. Grandmother headed back to the kitchen to boil the dumplings. Dumplings need 3 boils, noodles too. Once the water boils, add cold water twice and they'll be ready. By the time the dumplings were cooked, Grandfather had cleared the table. Small dishes of vinegar, pounded garlic, soy sauce, and sesame oil were neatly arranged in the center. Eat while they're hot. Grandmother carried out a big plate of steaming dumplings. White steam curled upward, partially obscuring her face. When Jingshu hurried to take the plate and set it down, then fetched the second plate. Grandmother brought out the third. The 3 of them sat around the 8-sided table. When Jingshu picked up a dumpling, blew on it, and took a bite. The wrapper was chewy, the filling delicious. The fresh aroma of chives blended with rich meat, spreading across her tongue. It tasted so good she nearly bit her tongue. It's amazing! Grandfather ate quickly, dipping dumplings in vinegar and garlic, sweating from the heat. Slow down, no one is competing with you. Grandmother handed him a towel. It tastes wonderful, Grandfather mumbled with his mouth full. After the meal, when Jingshu helped Grandmother wash the dishes, chatted with her grandparents for a while, then checked the wall clock. It was almost 12. Grandma, I have to leave. She stood up. Mom wants me home before noon. I have plans this afternoon. What plans? Grandmother held her hand tightly, unwilling to let her go. You've barely stayed and you're rushing off already. I'm visiting an aunt this evening to talk about the job opportunity. When Jingshu leaned down and kissed Grandmother's cheek. Grandma, I'll come visit next week. Next week? Which day exactly? Grandmother pressed her, demanding a definite answer. Next Sunday. I promise I'll come then. When Jingshu bent down and kissed Grandfather's cheek too. Grandpa, don't squat in the vegetable plot for long. Rest more with your bad back. I know. All of you treat me like a frail old man. Grandfather waved his hand, sounding annoyed, yet his eyes crinkled with joy. You are an old man, when Jingshu grinned. Grandfather was left lost for words. He glared at her, yet his gaze was full of affection. When Jingshu pushed her bicycle toward the gate. Grandma, Grandpa, I'm off. Wait a minute. Don't rush. You forgot your things. Grandmother's voice called from the yard. She pulled her foot back and gripped the handlebars, turning to see Grandmother trotting back into the courtyard. Grandma, walk slowly, don't fall. When Jingshu propped up the bike and stepped closer. Grandmother vanished through the main hall doorway, calling out firmly, don't come inside. When Jingshu stood at the gate, unsure whether to go forward or stay, so she leaned against the door frame and waited. Grandfather strolled slowly out of the hall. Your grandmother, he said unhurriedly, has prepared things for you to take home. When Jingshu blinked. Prepared what? Grandfather offered no answer. He walked over to the stone bench under the locust tree, sat down and crossed his legs, looking like someone who knew everything but would not interfere. Before when Jingshu could ask more, Grandmother emerged from the hall. In one hand she held a bulging cloth bag stretched out of shape. Her other hand carried a net bag holding several glass jars. The jars glinted in the sunlight, clinking softly against one another. Grandma, let me help you carry those. When Jingshu hurried forward to take them. The net bag knocked against her leg as she almost lost her grip. I packed some vegetables for you. Grandmother brushed dust off her palms. The spinach your grandfather grew is overabundant. We can't finish it all, so take some home. There are also several cucumbers picked yesterday, tender and fresh. Slice them up and toss them with mashed garlic for a salad. We also grow spinach at home, when Jingshu laughed. The spinach at your house is yours. This is grown by your grandfather, grandmother insisted firmly. And this, grandmother lifted one glass jar from the net bag. Peach fruit canned from your eldest uncle's factory. I tried one bottle. It's sweet, no sour aftertaste. Take a few home for your mother to taste. Eldest uncle's factory makes these? When Jingshu turned the jar to look at the label, the packaging looks quite nice. Naturally. Your eldest uncle manages production there. He oversaw this batch himself. He said they used new production methods, making them tastier than the older versions. Grandmother pulled out a second jar. This one is pear. Your grandfather likes pear preserves, though I find them overly sweet. Which flavor do you prefer? Anything's fine with me. Then take all of them, Grandma said without hesitation. Grandma, that's more than enough, when Jingshu pressed her hand against the bag. If I ride my bike carrying this much, I'll barely be able to steady the handlebars. I thought you were quite skilled at cycling? Grandma raised an eyebrow. Your dad told me you nearly crashed into a tree last time. How did that happen? When Jingshu looked like she'd just been caught red-handed. Grandma, why does Dad tell you everything? That was ages ago. Ages ago? It was only last year, wasn't it? Grandma thought for a moment. Last autumn, you rode over here and almost ran into the wall by Grandpa Wang's house at the alley entrance. Your dad told me all about it. When Jingshu stared blankly up at the sky, her father had this annoying habit of reporting every little mishap of hers to Grandma. When she'd scored poorly on an exam as a child, he'd called Grandma to say Jingshu didn't do well this time. When she'd had a falling out with a classmate in high school, he'd told Grandma Jingshu quarreled with her schoolmate. And of course, he'd recounted the near collision with the wall. Dad always makes a mountain out of a molehill when Jingshu pouted. I just veered slightly off course. The wall was still this far away. She held up her fingers to show a gap roughly 2 centimeters wide. 2 centimeters? Grandma glanced at the space she gestured to and laughed. You call that slightly veering off? You practically nearly bumped straight into it. When Jingshu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, she quickly changed the subject. Grandma, can I give these canned goods away? I'm visiting an aunt tonight, and a couple of cans would make a nice gift. You can give them away. Your uncle's factory makes these. They're respectable to take as presents. Pick 2 with nice, undented glass jars for gifting. Grandma suddenly remembered something, turned and walked into the house. A moment later, she came out holding a package wrapped in oil paper and handed it to Jingshu. This is peach crisp your grandpa bought from the supply and marketing cooperative yesterday. Take it home to eat. Grandpa bought these? She glanced at Grandpa, who pretended to study the tea leaves in his enamel mug, yet his ears stood straight up. He rode his bike there specially yesterday. Said Jingshu shouldn't leave empty-handed when she visits. Grandma spoke loud enough for Grandpa to hear clearly. Grandpa's ears turned even redder, and the corners of his mouth tugged upward despite his efforts to hold back a smile. Watching him put on that show of I didn't do anything, everyone's just praising me for no reason, when Jingshu felt a warm, amused feeling swell inside her chest. She walked over to Grandpa, squatted down, and rested her hand on his knee. Thank you, Grandpa. Grandpa could no longer keep up his stern act. He reached out and ruffled her hair. No need to thank me. Focus on doing well at work. That matters more than anything. I will work hard. When Jingshu looked up at him, her eyes shining brightly. Once I earn enough money, I'll buy you the finest tea there is. Grandpa smiled, the wrinkles on his face crinkling together. The tea I have now is perfectly good. Don't waste money unnecessarily. It won't cost too much. I've got a way to get it. When Jingshu blinked, smiling mysteriously, Grandma stepped forward from behind her and tucked the oil paper package of peach crisps into the bag. All right, off you go. Stop dawdling. Ride slowly on the way, don't speed. Especially when turning, brake early, and don't nearly crash into walls. When Jingshu finished Grandma's sentence with a grin and stood up. I know, Grandma. Don't worry. Grandma, Grandpa, I'm leaving. She rode a few meters forward before turning to call back. Come visit next week. Grandma shouted from the doorway. Don't forget. I won't. When Jingshu steered with one hand and waved the other high above her head. She'd originally planned to sneak the money back under Grandma's pillow, but Grandma seemed to have seen right through her plan. She never left when Jingshu's side the entire morning, even waiting outside the restroom while she went in, guarding her like she was watching a thief. She glanced down at the shoulder bag hanging from her bicycle handlebars, then thought about the neatly stacked goods inside her system's storage space. She made a mental plan. She needed to stop by the post office to send the parcel for her elder brother. 5 boxes of dragon beard candy, 5 boxes of mixed nuts, and 10 pork sausages. 5 boxes each of the candy and nuts was just right. Her brother could keep 2 boxes for himself and pass the rest around to his comrades, maintaining good relationships. The 10 pork sausages would last him a while, and he could share those as well. Her elder brother was alone in the frigid Northeast. All she could do was let him know that his family back home was thinking of him. She parked her bicycle beneath the steps of the post office, propped it upright, and didn't head inside right away. Instead, she looked left and right. No one was paying attention to her. When Jingshu took a deep breath, slipped her hand into her bag, and silently recited in her mind, "Retrieve 5 boxes of dragon beard candy, 5 boxes of mixed nuts, 10 pork sausages." The post office was small. A tall wooden counter stood just inside the entrance, fitted with iron railings that left only several palm-sized service windows. She set her shoulder bag on the counter and pulled the goods out one by one. "Comrade, I'd like to send a parcel." She pushed the items toward the window. A woman in her 30s sat behind the window, her hair styled in 2 shoulder-length braids, a small badge pinned to her collar. She looked over the goods, then raised her eyes to Wen Jingshu, a flicker of surprise on her face. "You're sending quite a lot?" "Yes, for my elder brother. He serves in the military in the Northeast." Wen Jingshu smiled. "Conditions are harsh there, so I'm sending him some food." The postal worker nodded, her expression softening. She pulled a parcel form out of a drawer and slid it across. "Fill this out. Write your sender information clearly and double-check the recipient's name and address. We can't make changes if they're written incorrectly." When Jingshu took the form and fountain pen, leaning over the counter to write. Her handwriting was neat and careful, and she took great care not to misspell a single character. Once finished, she added a note in the remarks column, "Contains food goods. Handle with care." The postal worker read through the completed form and nodded. She pulled a white cloth sack out from under the counter, placed all the items inside, stitched the opening closed with thread, then stuck a white label printed with the address and recipient's name onto the sack. "Let's weigh it." When Jingshu set the cloth sack on the scale atop the counter, the weight slid to mark 5 caddies and 2 tails. The postal worker clicked her abacus rapidly, then looked up. "Parcel postage plus registration fee totals 1 yuan and 28 fen." She counted out the money and handed it over. When Jingshu cycled into the lane leading to the family compound and spotted a familiar figure in the distance. Aunt Wang. She craned her neck, peering toward the lane entrance. She didn't look like she was waiting for someone. She looked like she was keeping watch. When Jingshu had an uneasy premonition. She'd seen Aunt Wang wear that exact expression before. Sure enough. "Jingshu." Aunt Wang's eyes lit up. She hurried forward in quick strides. "You're finally back. I've been waiting ages for you." When Jingshu smiled. "What can I do for you, Aunt Wang?" Aunt Wang drew closer and lowered her voice, as if she were about to share a huge secret. "Do you have any more of that corn oil you shared with me last time?" When Jingshu blinked in surprise. "Let me tell you." Aunt Wang spoke as fast as a machine gun, gesturing wildly with her hands as she talked. "When I brought that oil home to cook, my husband Lu took the first bite and said, 'This oil is excellent. Where did you get it?' I made dumplings and my mother-in-law ate a full plate and a half. After she finished, she wiped her mouth and said, 'These dumplings taste wonderful. Did you add extra meat?' But I used exactly the same amount of meat as usual. It was just the oil that made all the difference." When Jingshu smiled gently. "You're far too kind, Aunt Wang. It's just ordinary corn oil." "Ordinary? Don't try to fool me. I've bought oil from the supply and marketing cooperative and off the black market too. I've never seen oil this clear and fragrant. What's the background of your classmate? Does he work at the provincial food company?" When Jingshu replied with a vague hum and offered no further details. Seeing that she hadn't denied it, Aunt Wang grew even more eager. "Jingshu, I want to talk something over with you. My younger sister came over for dinner last time and tasted the oil. She pestered me for 3 straight days, asking where I bought it." When Jingshu could tell immediately. Aunt Wang wasn't just looking to buy a small amount for herself, she wanted to purchase a bulk supply. Aunt Wang counted on her fingers. "Jingshu, do you still have any? Could you spare a larger batch for me?" When Jingshu looked at Aunt Wang's expectant face, her mind racing quickly. There were still 49 barrels of corn oil in the system, each holding 10 caddies, 490 caddies in total. Quantity was not the problem. The trouble was figuring out how to produce the oil without drawing attention. When Jingshu bit her lip and put on a troubled expression. I do have the oil, Aunt Wang, she said slowly, her tone hesitant. But you know how it is. My classmate can't get these goods for nothing. His family works at the food company, and there are costs involved. It's not easy for me to ask him for such a large quantity all at once. Aunt Wang was sharp, witted, and understood immediately. She waved her hands quickly. You won't have to get it for free. I'll pay the proper price. I won't take advantage of you. When Jingshu thought for a moment, then met Aunt Wang's eyes, looking as though she'd reached a difficult decision. I can help you get the oil, Aunt Wang, but the price. We can negotiate the price. Aunt Wang grabbed her hand at once. Just tell me, how much per caddy? When Jingshu didn't rush to answer, she mentally tallied the numbers first. 110, caddy barrel of corn oil from the system cost her only 50 fin, 5 fin per caddy. In this era, soybean oil sold for roughly 50 fin per caddy at the supply and marketing cooperative, and you needed oil coupons to buy it. On the black market, oil could sell for 3 or 4 yuan per caddy. Buyers without coupons were forced to pay inflated prices. Aunt Wang, she lowered her voice, wary of passers-by overhearing. I'll be honest with you. No coupons required, but the price is high. How high? Aunt Wang leaned even nearer, her nose nearly touching Wen Jingshu's face. When Jingshu held up 3 fingers. 3 yuan. Aunt Wang's eyes widened. Per caddy. When Jingshu nodded. That's the same price as what you sold me last time, 3 yuan? Is that really true? Instead of complaining about the cost, Aunt Wang flushed with excitement and gripped Wen Jingshu's shoulders. Jingshu, you aren't teasing me, are you? The soybean oil on the black market is murky and has an odd odor, yet it costs 4 yuan a caddy. Your oil is crystal clear and far superior. 3 yuan? I hope you aren't covering the difference out of your own pocket. I'm not. That's the genuine price. Then how much can your classmate provide? I'll take all of it. I do have the oil, she said slowly, hesitation coloring her tone. I originally set it aside for my relatives. If you need it urgently, I can let you have it first. At those words, Aunt Wang seized Wen Jingshu's wrist. Really? Jingshu, you're such a good girl to me. Without further discussion, Aunt Wang counted out 90 yuan and pressed the money into Wen Jingshu's hands. Here, 90 yuan. Count it. When Jingshu laughed at her eagerness, tucked the money into her pocket and patted it lightly. Very well, Aunt Wang. Wait here, I'll go inside to fetch the oil. Aunt Wang waited by the doorway. When she laid eyes on the 3 enamel oil barrels, her eyes lit up as if she'd struck gold. She grinned from ear to ear. Jingshu, we have an agreement. Save some more for me next month. I have lots of relatives, and this amount won't be nearly enough to share around. I'll ask for you next month, when Jingshu nodded with a smile. A faint smile tugged at her lips as she turned and walked back into the house. 3 barrels of oil brought her a net profit of 8 yuan and 50 fin. This trade was incredibly lucrative. She climbed upstairs, placed the money beside her bank passbook, then pulled out all loose change from her pockets and counted it. Her savings stood at 835 yuan in the passbook. Adding the 200 yuan grandma had given her, the 90 yuan from Aunt Wang, and her spare pocket cash. She had more than 1,100 yuan in total. Over 1,100 yuan. The system skill merchant's trade routes was marked at a nominal price of 100,000 system points, with an actual deduction of 1,000 yuan. She had more than enough.